Chapter 1563. Han Fei teased. After all, a half-king realm expert naturally knew how much benefit the spiritual fruits he brought could bring. After hearing Han Fei's teasing, Gan Feng let out a long sigh of relief and thought to himself, I've also calculated. Even if Han Fei had some reservations, he couldn't have more than 5,000 spiritual fruits left. Even so, Han Fei was already too amazing. Treating more than 30,000 people was like a piece of cake to him? Was this the legendary path of the King of Humanity? Or was Han Fei really the reincarnation of the King of Humanity? At this moment, Gan Feng wasn't quite sure. She brought 30,000 people, and Han Fei's side had lost 320,000 people. In short, they were all on the same side, so of course he would provide as many spiritual fruits as he could. Gan Feng said in a relaxed mood, no problem. In another 3 days, I'll send another 20,000 spiritual fruits. In that case, I'll be in trouble. Han Fei looked at Gan Feng. Among these people, I think some of them are suspicious. What do you think? Gan Feng smiled faintly. It doesn't matter. I know what to do. Hearing Gan Feng's words, Han Fei didn't ask further. There were spies among these people, and Gan Feng obviously knew who they were. To Han Fei's surprise, there were really a lot of spies in this cage. Perhaps the mermaids and mermen of Blackblood City didn't have the ability to turn into beasts. However, they were very good at turning into humans. This might have something to do with the cultivation techniques they practiced. After Gan Feng left, Han Fei completely turned into a doctor. On the first day, tens of thousands of holy pillars of light descended, shocking everyone on the island. Many people came to watch, wanting to see Han Fei's amazing healing divine technique. During this period, Han Fei found a few spies secretly whispering to each other, but Wang He remained motionless and didn't intend to contact other spies at all. Wang He was not an idiot. Since Han Fei could easily identify the explorer spies on the Island of Death, then none of these explorer spies would be able to escape his detection. These people must have been recorded in a small notebook, but Han Fei didn't mention it. As for why he didn't mention it, that was easy to understand. After all, these people were all Gan Feng's subordinates. If he had to say it, he would say it to Gan Feng. Now that he knew who the spy was, he could make use of it. This kind of thing had happened more than once or twice in the conflict between Blackblood City and Immortal City. Therefore, Wang He would never expose himself under such circumstances. Treating tens of thousands of people a day, this kind of terrifying healing ability had made Han Fei a legend. Throughout the history of the cage, no spirit gatherer had ever had 1% of Han Fei's magical ability. Those who had been saved by Han Fei had completely changed their mentality. After they were cured, they looked at Han Fei as if they were looking at their idol. Therefore, on this day Han Fei felt that the power of wish was growing. Although there were only a few people, these people were very strong, so even though there were not many of them, Han Fei could still feel the power of wish. This was also very much needed for Han Fei. Actually, the power of will was secondary, as it would eventually be used up. The key was the will of the people. This was what Han Fei needed. The next day, just like the day before, Han Fei treated tens of thousands of people in less than 2 hours. On the third day, it was still the same. 3 days later, Gan Feng delivered another 20,000 spirit fruits, just as he had said. In addition to spiritual fruits, he also gave Han Fei 39 explorer-level sea creatures. From the 4th day, Han Fei began to treat the people he brought to the Firestone Island. These people also knew that Han Fei's treatment required vitality, so under the organization of Long Shi and the others, everyone pooled their resources and gave Han Fei about 3,000 spiritual fruits of life. Although they knew that more than 3,000 spiritual fruits were just a drop in the bucket, this was already the limit of their ability. After all, this was what they had saved up in the past. Some people felt that it was useless to eat them, so they simply didn't eat them. Some people were prepared to use them to save their lives. Since Han Fei now had such a magical healing technique, there was no need to keep these spiritual fruits. 7 days later, on Gan Feng's side, people continued to send spiritual fruits and some explorer-level sea demonic beasts. These were all willingly given. It could be seen that Han Fei's treatment of everyone was really popular. On Han Fei's side, 50,000 people had been treated one after another. Although only a part of them had been cured and it was still far from Han Fei's promise, this had already shocked countless people. Because of Han Fei's terrifying healing technique, many people who had been cured clamored to go out to fight, hunt sea demons, and look for spiritual fruits every day, but they were all rejected by Han Fei. On this day, more than 50,000 people waited outside Han Fei's mansion to petition. They knew that Han Fei should have no resources in his hands. At this time, they couldn't expect the resources of the entire front line to be sent to the Firestone Island, so they could only fight for them themselves. Swish! Suddenly, the void shook, and Yi Qian appeared. Countless people bowed their heads. Grand Venerable Yi Qian. Yi Qian didn't hesitate and looked directly at Han Fei's hut. The venerable battle has begun. Wow! The array disappeared, and Han Fei appeared directly in front of everyone with a smile on his face. He said lightly, "I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Han Fei said, "No one is allowed to leave the island without my order. When I come back from hunting 2 venerables, I'll find a way to repair your foundation." Hearing Han Fei's words, Wang He was anxious. He had seen Han Fei's strength. What the hell was a mid-level venerable? That was someone who could slaughter a half-king. However, he was only a mid-level venerable on the surface. Therefore, everyone was very confident that Han Fei would hunt 2 venerables. After all, they had all seen Han Fei's skills. Wang He looked around and thought, someone will propose to go together, right? Sure enough, when Wang He was about to speak, someone said, "General Han, do we need to go and help in the venerable battle?" Wang He thought that this suggestion was wrong, so he said, "General Han, there are too few venerables on the front line, which has always been a problem of the Immortal City. Every time there is a venerable battle, the sea demons measure the strength of our side. Let's go and help to boost the morale of the Immortal City." After Wang He said that, even Yi Qian looked at Han Fei. What he said was right. A large part of the reason why Black Blood City hadn't attacked Immortal City was because of the pressure from the Demon Beast Alliance. Over the years, the number of venerables on the front line of the Immortal City had gradually decreased, which had attracted the attention of Black Blood City. However, Han Fei sneered. "Have you forgotten the plan to kill the venerables? Not to mention that the war between the 2 sides hasn't started yet. Even if the war starts, you can still be regarded as a surprise force. Everyone, stay at Firestone Island. Without my order, no one is allowed to leave the island." At that moment, Wang He wanted to say something. However, Han Fei said in a low voice, "After I make a decision, don't try to disobey my military order." Han Fei glanced at Wang He and the other venerables. His power made everyone a little scared. Yes, these days Han Fei had been treating patients and recovering his spiritual power, so they almost forgot Han Fei's character. Wang He sighed in his heart. Unfortunately, a venerable from Black Blood City is going to die. It seems that I have to do something. I can't be so passive all the time. However, Han Fei was too domineering and didn't give me a chance. On the way, Yi Qian asked, "You know, your existence can't be hidden. In fact, there were even spies trying to find ways to leak information. In the war in the past few days, many spies wanted to go out, but none of them were selected. If we continue to suppress them, they may be alarmed." Han Fei grinned and said, "As soon as I show up, the Black Killer Snail King will definitely be alerted, and the front line of the Immortal City will immediately be under pressure. Of course, the news of my arrival will be released. But when will it be released? Who will release it? I have to decide." Because the journey was very short, Han Fei and Yi Qian had arrived at the 4th island before they had time to say a few words. At this moment, outside the front line, a sea demon venerable was clamoring, "What? You haven't fought a battle of venerables for such a long time. Do you all think that Black Blood City has forgotten your existence? Does anyone dare to come out and fight?" A sea demon venerable set up a battle array and said coldly, "If no one comes out in 100 seconds, don't blame me for challenging you. It's okay if you don't want to fight. As long as the Immortal City dares to fight, I will satisfy you." Ganfeng's subordinates. Someone yelled, "How arrogant! Don't forget that I almost killed one of your venerables in the last battle. It's only been a month, and you dare to be so arrogant. Let me kill you." Someone yelled, "I'll do it. Boss gone, I'll do it. I've reached a bottleneck recently. This is a good opportunity for me to make a breakthrough." Suddenly, a voice came from afar. "I'll do it." The human venerables looked back and were all surprised to see Han Fei. Now, everyone in the venerable realm in the immortal city knew Han Fei. Who didn't know him? Even the explorers whose foundations had been repaired by Han Fei had begun to talk about Han Fei. He repaired the foundations of 30,000 people in 3 days. Such a terrifying spirit gatherer was the first in the history of the cage. Besides, the fact that Han Fei blew up Qin Xiang with 2 punches was really shocking. It was hard not to know. Therefore, as soon as Han Fei spoke, all the venerables stopped talking. Besides, these people all knew in their hearts that some venerables were going to die today. However, they still couldn't understand why Han Fei made a promise to kill 10 venerables within a year. You're strong enough, but you keep your words to yourself. Every time you fight, you pretend to barely win, and it's possible to kill 10 venerables within 100 years. However, if you say it out loud, how can the enemy's spies not know? In fact, they didn't know Han Fei's real purpose at all. Han Fei came to the immortal city with 3 plans. First, to harvest a wave of venerables. Second, to check out the Forbidden Island. And third, to sneak into Black Blood City. At this moment, Han Fei was working hard to realize the first plan. With a swish, Han Fei stood in front of the battlefield. Han Fei walked forward step by step. "Maybe you don't know me, but let me fight in today's venerable battle." Chapter 1564. In front of everyone, Han Fei walked out valiantly and energetically. The realm of an intermediate venerable didn't arouse the slightest suspicion. Han Fei's original realm was only so high. If he forcibly improved it, there was a chance that he could be promoted to the peak of the intermediate venerable. However, he would definitely be stuck in this realm for decades, which was not worth it. Looking at Han Fei coming up, the sea demons were also a little confused. After all, they had fought against the immortal city for tens of thousands of years. If a new venerable was born in the immortal city, he should have shown up on the front line. This Han Fei was not a junior venerable at all, and they had never seen him before. Therefore, many sea demons felt very strange. If Han Fei was a junior venerable, the sea demons might not take him seriously. That meant that he had just become a venerable and was on the front line for the first time. Generally speaking, this kind of situation often happened in the long history. After all, someone would always advance to the venerable realm. However, this Han Fei was an intermediate venerable, which was puzzling. How could there be an unknown intermediate venerable on the human side? Where did he come from? Why didn't the undercover report his information? At this moment, as soon as Han Fei came up, he immediately attracted the attention of many sea demons. A sea demon venerable shouted, "Hey! A newcomer? Who are you? I don't remember there being a person like you in the immortal city." Han Fei tilted his head and looked at the person who spoke. "You underestimate the immortal city if you know everything. Besides, who do you think you are? Do you think you're qualified to know me? Bastard! You're courting death." Han Fei smiled contemptuously. "All these years, I haven't seen your Black Blood City take advantage of the immortal city. You said I'm courting death? Do you dare to fight me? Why not?" Wait. Just as the sea demon was about to come up, a half-king suddenly spoke. This person sneered. "Young man, you need to hone yourself. A newcomer who hasn't reached the peak of the intermediate level can't understand the power of the peak. Yuao Hai, go and meet this person." Under the half-king's tent, a half-mermaid who had 3 bulges on his head and a strong body stood out with 2 big spears in his hands. Yuao Hai, this name sounded quite domineering. At this moment, Yuao Hai bared his fangs and shouted, "Human, it's not too late for you to admit defeat and scram. Otherwise, we won't be able to go back." Han Fei's face slightly changed and he looked back at Ganfeng. This action seemed to be seeking Ganfeng's opinion. Ganfeng naturally understood what Han Fei meant. In front of everyone, she nodded slightly at Han Fei. Han Fei smiled, then turned around and said with a smile, "How can the glory of the human race be lost in my hands?" But at this moment, the sea demons didn't know that the 3 half-king realm experts of the Immortal City were closely monitoring the situation. Apart from Han Fei's subordinates, only the Venerables knew that Han Fei had defeated Qin Xiang. At this moment, Han Fei's subordinates were all on the Firestone Island. In that case, if something unexpected were to happen, it would mean that there was a traitor among the Venerable Realm experts. In fact, Han Fei was confident to identify traitors in the Venerable Realm. However, asking him to find them one by one? Obviously, this was not very realistic. After all, what was a Venerable One? Did they have nothing better to do? You're a newcomer and you want to meet me. Do I have to meet you? Therefore, Han Fei did not intend to meet all the Venerables one by one. That was really unrealistic. If he did so, it would be easy to alert the enemy. Although there were many sea demon spies among those explorers. However, these people wanted to tip off the Venerable Realm? It was much more difficult than being a Venerable. As long as they were not allowed to go to the battlefield, they wouldn't be able to send any news out unless they wanted to die. At this time, Han Fei was not worried that there would be any problems in this battle. Earlier, after Han Fei treated the wounded, he specially met Gan Feng. The two of them had reached an agreement on the issue of spies. Gan Feng exchanged the information she had with Han Fei at that time. Then, at the moment when Han Fei entered the battlefield, the battle was like an arrow on the bowstring. The two sides were about to fight. Suddenly, on the human side, a half-venerable realm expert suddenly burst out and roared, "This person is the strongest spirit gatherer of the human race. He saved him." Before this person finished speaking, a big hand had already grasped him. Bang! A loud explosion was heard, and the surrounding sound was quickly isolated. A half-venerable was actually a spy and directly sacrificed himself to expose Han Fei's identity. Gan Feng's face suddenly changed and she glanced around, scaring countless people. Someone secretly cursed, "Fuck, how can there be a spy among the half-venerables?" Someone was shocked. "Zhou Yu is my good friend. How did he become a spy? It's over, it's over. This time they will definitely find out about me." When the half-venerable realm expert was angry, the whole scene fell silent. At this moment, even if another half-venerable realm expert wanted to shout, he would probably be squeezed to death by the half-venerable realm expert. On the sea demon side, the half-venerable realm expert sat on the throne of waves, looking at the field coldly. The strongest spirit gatherer of the human race? I see. No wonder this person has never shown up in front of others, because this kind of person doesn't need to show up at all. However, this half-venerable realm expert was slightly puzzled. The strongest spirit gatherer is just a spirit gatherer. Why does a spirit gatherer have to fight in front of others? Although he couldn't tell what was different about Han Fei, the half-venerable realm expert still reminded him. However, the half-king still reminded, "You Aohai, don't hold back. Go all out." Han Fei's face became gloomy, but he was overjoyed in his heart. Although he didn't intend to hide his identity for long, Gan Feng's operation was indeed very good. As soon as Yu Aohai heard the half-venerable realm expert's order, he immediately roared and jumped up. Lightning fell from the sky and poured into 2 big spears, stabbing directly at Han Fei. Behind the humans, at the moment when Yu Aohai jumped up, a venerable reminded Han Fei, "Be careful, those are thunder spears, which can turn into lightning." However, Han Fei didn't move. Since he had come out as a spirit gatherer, of course he had to put on a show. Han Fei raised one hand, and a large array of more than 10 meters under his feet instantly condensed. An old turtle was lying on the ground, vivid and lifelike. Qilu clang, clang, clanged in an instant. Tens of millions of thunder spears bombarded Han Fei's coiled turtle array. However, when one array was about to be shattered, Han Fei stomped and another coiled turtle array appeared. Hiss! Behind the humans, a spirit gatherer exclaimed, "Damn, is the coiled turtle array so strong?" A venerable who was both a spirit gatherer and a soul warrior was dumbfounded. "Did I learn the wrong way?" Seeing that Han Fei's shield was so strong that his endless lightning couldn't penetrate it, Yu Aohai roared and the two spears reappeared in his hands. This time he soared into the sky. The next moment, the raging waves surged to the sky. In the seawater, a pair of scarlet eyes appeared, which was this person's associated spirit. Thunder technique. As soon as the black shadow opened its mouth, a thick thunderbolt was shot out. However, this thunderbolt didn't blast at Han Fei, but at Yu Aohai. Yu Aohai was hit, but in the thousands of meters of seawater, he turned into a water giant hundreds of meters high and thrust his two spears at the sky. At that moment, many people on the human side were shocked. Someone exclaimed, "Not good." Yu Aohai's attack, combined with the power of his associated spirit, has reached the advanced venerable realm. Someone roared, "Watch out!" Of course, most of the people who were shouting were explorers. The supreme expert's expressions were merely changing. They were all acting. Although Yu Aohai's attack seemed fierce, but no matter how fierce he was, could he be more fierce than Chen Xiang? Even Chen Xiang was blown up by Han Fei's two attacks. Yu Aohai was nothing. In the distance, Chen Xiang came to watch the battle in person. At this moment, her face was as cold as ice, completely indifferent to the battle in front of her. At that moment, Han Fei stepped on 3 coiled turtle arrays and put on spiritual armor. Crack, crack, cracks. However, after one blow, facing the endless power, Han Fei's arrays persisted for 10 minutes before they were broken. At that moment, Han Fei was hit by the thunderbolt, and a deep pit with a range of more than 500 meters appeared on the surface of the sea. Good. Good job. What the hell? A mere spirit gatherer dares to fight on the front line? Is there no one else in the human race? Seeing this, the corners of Yu Aohai's mouth curled into a smile as he charged forward with his spear. However, just as Yu Aohai stepped on the surface of the sea, all of a sudden, the sea demon half-king sat up straight. Within a kilometer of Yu Aohai, a complex array suddenly appeared. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. At that moment, endless thunderbolts turned into knife light, wrapped in a layer of golden light, and in an instant, a storm was stirred up in the array. Puff, puff, puff. At that moment, Yu Aohai was instantly twisted into a skeleton, and there was no flesh or blood left on his body. You know I'm a spirit gatherer, but you still dare to underestimate me? Who will die if you don't? Han Fei's voice rang out leisurely. At that moment, Han Fei floated up from the water, and a holy light enveloped him. The cracks all over his body were shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. After only a few minutes, Han Fei's ruined body had been restored to its original state. Han Fei smiled faintly. Since you're good at using thunderbolts, you can die in thunderbolts. The conditions to use this thunder deity slaying array are extremely harsh. There must be a lot of power of thunderbolts. I'll try it on you. The sea demon half-king instantly got up and shouted in a low voice, "Let's call it a day." However, Han Fei stretched out his hand and a thunderbolt knife light seemed to be pulled out from the void. Boom! That knife light shattered Yu Aohai's bones. His soul had long been locked by Han Fei's void lines. At this moment, Han Fei had taken a sip. A red crack appeared in the sky, dark clouds gathered, and blood dripped down. Han Fei tilted his head to look at the sea demon half-king and said leisurely, "What did you just shout?" Chapter 1565. Yu Aohai's death was the consensus of all human venerables. In their view, Yu Aohai fought against a half-king with the power of a peak-level intermediate venerable. Who would die if he didn't? But Han Fei pretended to be so strong? It seemed that he had been crippled. However, as the strongest spirit gatherer of the human race, Han Fei's injuries were healed in an instant, and there wasn't even the slightest injury on his body. Oh, sea demon scoundrel, look, this is the strength of our human race. Ha! Are you dumbfounded? Do you know that our human race has such a powerful spirit gatherer? Wow! Since when did our immortal city have such a strong master? It turns out that this is the real strength of a spirit gatherer. He can't be killed at all. In the noise behind, Han Fei absorbed a lot of ownerless souls. After consuming his soul power again, he was less than 5,000 points away from full recovery. As long as he slaughtered 4 more, he should be able to make up for it. As for vitality, Han Fei had already made up for it. However, when he went back this time, Han Fei planned to claim that his vitality was insufficient. In this way, he could get some spiritual fruits and heal tens of thousands of people. The sea demon half-king didn't expect that a spirit gatherer's killing means could be so powerful. Yu Aohai's physique was not weak. However, he couldn't even block a lightning blade. The problem was that Yu Aohai was extremely good at lightning fighting. However, he was killed by the lightning blade in the end. How could people not be shocked? At this moment, many people looked up at the sky and watched the blood rain pouring down. Many people slightly breathed a sigh of relief. In the past few decades, human beings had not been able to kill sea demon venerables. After all, it had always been sea demons suppressing human beings. On the human side, those who should have appeared had already appeared. These venerables of Black Blood City were very familiar with the combat power of the venerables of the human race. At this moment, Han Fei appeared as a brand new character with many means. Before, when facing Qin Xiang, he used pure fighting methods, and everyone could feel the ferocious power from Han Fei. However, this time, Han Fei killed a powerhouse at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm with the help of a formation. Perhaps, for those explorers, Han Fei's battle wasn't easy. It was even thrilling. However, in the eyes of the human venerables, killing a venerable was as easy as taking a stroll in the park. Han Fei's expression was calm as he calmly looked at the half-sea demon king. He spoke with confidence and assurance amidst the splashing seawater and the boundless curtain of rain. Look, my undying city isn't that weak, and Black Blood City isn't that strong. You haven't seen a spirit gatherer in action before. Today, I'll show you and let you know that you are all garbage. While saying this, Han Fei waved his hand casually, and the rolling waves collapsed, and the sea gradually calmed down. At that moment, Han Fei stood alone in the raging sea. One person seemed to have formed his own battle line, extremely valiant. Looking at this scene, Qin Xiang had a strange thought in her heart. Yes, even at this moment, she still didn't think Han Fei looked like a commander. A commander should observe the overall situation and devise strategies. A general should command the army and fight everywhere, brave and invincible. A soldier should charge and break through enemy lines, attack cities and seize territory. It could be said that a soldier should do his best, a general should do his best, and a commander should do his best. But Han Fei didn't have any of these three. Qin Xiang suddenly thought of something. According to the news from the Undying City, Han Fei regarded himself as a human king. What if this is true? This idea just flashed in Qin Xiang's mind, and she didn't think about it deeply. At this moment, Han Fei was still standing in the sea, looking straight at the half-sea demon king. I won't leave today. An intermediate venerable realm expert will not refuse anyone. No matter who it is, I will fight. Han Fei put his hands behind his back and held his head high. After a pause, Han Fei grinned. Want to kill me? Maybe you only have this chance. If no one comes, I'm leaving. Many sea demon venerables frowned. This man was too evil. How long had it been since Yu Aohai attacked? He was killed by a knife. More importantly, this man was unparalleled in arrays and could heal himself. He must have a strong explosive force that could blow him up in one round. Han Fei waited for another 2 minutes, glanced at the sea demon camp, and said disdainfully, "A bunch of trash, how dare you try to attack the human race? Stop." Suddenly, the void was torn apart, and a long-haired young man in heavy armor crawled out of the void. Yes, he crawled out. The man's lower body had a total of 8 tentacles, like a spider, but with armor as thick as a crab's shell. The upper body was human, wearing armor that was so thick that it could be used as a shield. Hiss! When they saw this man, countless explorers on the human side gasped. It's the crab-eater. He's a lunatic. Someone said angrily, "Fuck, why did this thing come out? He eats everything. Everyone who is defeated by him is eaten by him." An undying shouted, "Kill him." A human venerable deliberately said to him via voice transmission, "Shall we stop here today? This man has a special identity. He has the bloodline of an ancient king crab and has amazing defensive power. The great path, the sea demon shook the void and shattered the voice coming from the human side. He said coldly, "Don't you think it's too late to say something at the last minute?" The crab eater sneered and said, "A human spirit gatherer? I heard that you are an intermediate venerable and you don't refuse anyone?" Han Fei shrugged slightly. "I said that I don't refuse anyone." The crab eater's claws pierced the void and approached Han Fei a little. Because the speed at which his claws plunged into the void was too fast, every movement of his claws could create flames from the friction with the air. It was as if he was walking on fire. Han Fei raised his hand, and a spiritual energy storm formed above his body. Han Fei said, "Crab, it should taste good." Hardly had Han Fei said that when thousands of thorns pierced out of thin air from the void. Clank, clank, clanks. However, at the moment those thorn shadows appeared on Han Fei's body, an armor shield flew. The Taoist pattern's 6-spirit armor appeared out of thin air. On the sea surface, a series of arrays appeared. In a breath's time, dozens of arrays appeared at a speed that was so fast that it was dazzling to the eyes. The coiled turtle array, the soul-driving array, the spirit-gathering array, the 6-spirit armor. There were also some lines that Han Fei couldn't understand, swimming in the sea. He didn't know what they were for. Han Fei still had his hands behind his back and said with a faint smile, "I heard that you are very powerful? I'd like to see how powerful a crab can be." Hey! The crab eater was so fast that his body disappeared and he began to circle around Han Fei. As it spun, 2 bodies came out. Han Fei sensed it and found it was a bit like the Gemini divine technique. One was the original body, the other was a shadow, but in terms of strength, the 2 didn't seem to be weakened. Han Fei immediately understood that this person had a special ability that allowed him to have 2 bodies. It was also a bit similar to Zhang Xuanyu's triple original body. However, no matter which one it was not as powerful as his Gemini divine technique. If he were to use the Gemini divine technique, this crab-eater demon would be able to bite him to death. Han Fei stepped on the sea and saw a giant turtle 1,000 feet high lying across the sea. The giant turtle roared and the array was mysterious. Han Fei said lightly, "I don't know who gave you the courage to think that you can compete with me? Arrogant human, you are indeed unparalleled in arrays. However, there are thousands of great Daos in this world. How many can you defend with arrays? You want to break all arrays with one? I don't believe it." The shadow crab eater turned into a shadow, ignored the array, and directly grabbed Han Fei's shadow. At the moment when the shadow passed through the array, Han Fei frowned slightly, took out the embroidery needle, and made a gesture of preparing to attack. However, it never occurred to Han Fei that the shadow didn't touch his body. Instead, it only touched his shadow, yet it was able to confront his soul. The venerables on the sea demon's side all smiled when they saw Han Fei's shadow being caught. This time, there's no way to save him. The great path of the crab-eater, eating shadow. Even if Han Fei knew it, he would be caught unknowingly, let alone Han Fei who didn't know. The next moment, Han Fei was completely motionless. The crab-eater chuckled. "See, I was right, wasn't I? You have to pay for your ignorance." The 10 blades of the crab-eater rotated and drilled through Han Fei's great plate turtle array. After all, this was a defensive array designed to resist peak-level intermediate venerables. As long as the attack was strong enough, it would always be broken. Just when the 10 cone-shaped crab claws were only 10 meters away from Han Fei suddenly made a stabbing gesture. Bam! A round hole was blasted out of the crab-eater's body. A large swath of blue divine souls was blasted out by Han Fei. What a pity! Boom! In the sky, another red crack appeared, and the range of the blood rain expanded. The crab-eater was so excited that he didn't even know why he was stabbed to death by Han Fei's spear. This was probably the most wronged guy in Black Blood City so far. He thought that the enemy would die in his hands in the next second. However, the result was exactly the opposite. Han Fei grabbed the corpse of the crab-eater and the sun-moon shell, threw them into Forge the Universe, and said flatly, "King Crab? It should taste good." Everyone. The faint smile on the sea demon half-king's face suddenly froze, and he stepped to the edge of the battlefield. "Who the hell are you?" Han Fei glanced at him indifferently and suddenly grinned. "Me. I want to challenge higher levels. Do any of you sea demons dare to fight me?" The half-king suddenly thought of one thing. A few years ago, an incident happened in the Demon-Beast Alliance. A man named Bull Demon King killed 7 sea demons in 3 battles. Even the momentum in Blackblood City at that time was weakened. Today, he suddenly felt something. The sea demon half-king shouted, "Who the hell are you?" At this time, Han Fei also knew that he couldn't fight anymore. If the people of Blackblood City were still fooled at this time, they would be stupid. Han Fei raised his head slightly. "My name is Han Fei." Chapter 1566. Now that he was sure that the sea demon half-king wouldn't send more people to fight him, Han Fei told him his real name without hesitation. Han Fei had considered using the Death Bone Sun to disguise himself as an immortal and kill the enemy again. However, he didn't know how the immortals fought, and he had never pretended to be one before. Not to mention that it was easy to be exposed, no matter how good his acting was. He could only kill one more person before the enemy realized it. Now, telling the enemy his name was far more shocking than pretending to be an immortal. Others might not know, but since this person was the half-king of Blackblood City, he should know the plan of Blackblood City to invade the Yin-Yang Heaven. Then he should know who Han Fei was. Sure enough, the sea demon half-king's pupils constricted when he heard Han Fei's name. "It's you? You're in the cage." Han Fei put his hands behind his back again and said leisurely, "Those who offend the human world must be killed. Tell the Black Killer Snail King that I'm here. Today I'll kill 2 to greet him. In the future, when my troops arrive at the city gates, I will still need his head." "Arrogant bastard, how dare you insult my king? Humans are courting death. The Immortal City is tired of living and is ready to start a full-scale war with Blackblood City, isn't it?" The sea demon half-king raised his arm and looked at Han Fei deeply. "I'll tell him what you said. However, the inside of the cage is different from the outside. I'd like to see how powerful the Immortal City can make you so arrogant." Retreat. Under the sea demon half-king's order, the sea demon experts retreated like a tide. After all, Blackblood City fought with humans in the Yin-Yang Heaven and was completely defeated. Many people had never been to the Yin-Yang Heaven. Their understanding of humans in the Yin-Yang Heaven was limited to what the Black Killer Snail King revealed and Chao Xian. Now, Han Fei appeared in the Immortal City. Did it mean that the Immortal City might have found the way to the outside world? If so, how many foreign venerables were there in the Immortal City now? This was all an unknown. On the other side, Han Fei killed 2 venerables in a row. Moreover, both of them were at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm, so they were not weak at all. At this time, the venerables of the Immortal City had an idea. If there was something wrong with Han Fei, Blackblood City wouldn't have sacrificed 2 such powerful experts to confuse them. Besides, judging from Han Fei's style of doing things today, the calmer he was and the more casual he was, the more domineering he was. In the end, Han Fei openly challenged the Black Killer Snail King. His calm demeanor made the scalps of countless people behind go numb. Many martial highnesses even began to transmit their voices to the 3.5 martial monarchs. "Is it really okay to let him challenge the Black Killer Snail King?" Someone said with a solemn expression, "This person is arrogant and unreasonable. I admit that he is extremely strong and his talent in all aspects far surpasses ordinary people. However, he can only fight against half a king right now, right?" Someone nodded in agreement. The Black Killer Snail King is a false king, and there are many demi-kings in Blackblood City. If all these people come out, how can my undying city block them? Even the other 2 demi-kings couldn't help but fall into deep thought. From the tone of the other side and their reactions after hearing Han Fei's name, they could roughly guess that there was a huge conflict between Han Fei and Blackblood City. However, just as the other venerables suspected, The difference in strength between the Immortal City and Black Blood City wasn't just a little bit. Now, Han Fei challenged the Black Killer Snail King only after killing 2 of them? What on earth did he rely on? After Han Fei's 2 battles, the entire human race's frontline also stirred up a heated discussion. Some people said that Han Fei should be so domineering, some said that Han Fei couldn't see the current situation clearly, and some asked, what should happen next has happened? Han Fei looked back at Gan Feng and the others and said indifferently, do you think I'm too aggressive? It turns out that you've been being worn down by the other side. Every few years, one of you will be heavily injured, and every few years, another will be injured. It won't be long before the Undying City is completely transformed into immortals, or it will be defeated by the sea demons. It's understandable that you're good at defense. But I'm good at offense, and I need cooperation. A half-king realm powerhouse said telepathically, you mean? You've attracted the Black Killer Snail King here, and will block it for you? Or, you're already as strong as the Black Killer Snail King? Han Fei grinned. The Black Killer Snail King is here. I'll add 10 more. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He tore open the void and went straight to Firestone Island. On Firestone Island, 2 red cracks appeared in the sky. Everyone could see it clearly. A rain of blood fell on the island, making them swallow uncontrollably. They knew that Han Fei was going to kill the Venerables. However, who the hell knew that he would kill the Venerables so soon? They felt that as soon as Han Fei left, a Venerable died. Not even half an incense stick's worth of time passed after the first one fell, and another one fell. Such a speed of killing Venerables made the explorers on Firestone Island feel a sense of hope. It seemed that humans hadn't been so domineering for a long time. The reason why the Immortal City didn't get angry at Han Fei for provoking the Black Killer Snail King was that they didn't think the Black Killer Snail King would come. What if the Black Killer Snail King really had the ability to destroy the Immortal City? It had been here for a long time. As for the human side, they had been hiding in this cage until now, so they naturally had some ways to deal with the Black Killer Snail King. Therefore, after Han Fei killed the 2 sea demon venerables, most people chose to believe Han Fei and waited to see what Han Fei would do next. Han Fei's identity was real. There was no doubt about this. However, now that his strength had been exposed, how could he find a way to kill 10 sea demons? At this moment, on Firestone Island, many people were cultivating, recovering, and sparring with each other. However, after the first sea demon died, these people all looked up at the sky. The venerable realm powerhouses gathered in groups of 3 to 5. Long Shi and the others stood together, feeling complicated. They were the first group of people who followed Han Fei. At that time, who knew that Han Fei would be so strong? Chen Yu looked at Long Shi and couldn't help saying, Long Shi, do you know where General Han sent Hua Meng to? Why hasn't he come back yet? Long Shi shook his head slightly. I don't know. No one knew what this General Han was thinking. Hua Meng must have a place to go since he left. On the other side, Lu Yuntian looked at this scene with mixed feelings. His furrowed brows had never relaxed. Old Lu. Lu Yuntian was sitting on a big tree, lost in thought, when he saw Wang He come to his side. Lu Yuntian was puzzled at this moment. Everyone looked like a spy to him now, of course. He couldn't show it on the surface. His voice was slightly cold as he said, What's wrong? Wang He smiled and said, Nothing. Can't I come to see you? The newly arrived Commander Han was indeed arrogant. But now it seems that he is indeed strong. In such a short time, he killed 2 sea demons in a row. Who can do this? Lu Yuntian's heart did a flip. His first reaction was, is Wang He a spy? Lu Yuntian immediately thought about Wang He. In the entire history of the human race, only a third of the venerable realm cultivators had never killed a sea demon venerable. They either died together with the sea demons, killed the sea demons, or were killed. Only a third of them severely injured the sea demons, or were severely injured by the sea demons. In Wang He's experience, although he had never killed a sea demon venerable, he had severely injured the sea demon venerable 3 times. So, it didn't look like it. Moreover, Wang He's background was not very good. He was born in an ordinary family. He had reached this point by taking one step at a time. Lu Yuntian suddenly remembered. More than 600 years ago, the Immortal City and Black Blood City had a super war. At that time, more than 50 venerables participated in the war. After that war, Wang He seemed to have been rescued. When he was rescued, he almost didn't even have the power to be reborn from a single drop of blood. Since then, Wang He rarely participated in the war. In 400 to 500 years, he had participated in less than 10 wars before he was severely injured again. Humph! Thinking of this, Lu Yuntian snorted softly. This person is domineering. This should be his character. Wang He shook his head and said, "No, look at Long Shi and the other junior venerables, but now they are suppressing you, an advanced venerable, to lead the troops. This is obviously. He is deliberately suppressing and excluding you. But I guess Han Fei also wants to subdue you and make you submit to him. After all, no matter how strong Han Fei is, he is still not as good as you in terms of realm." Lu Yuntian looked at Wang He. "What do you want to say?" Wang He smiled and said, "Old Lu, my foundation has recovered, and my strength is also at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm. Even if Long Shi and the others can suppress you, I can't stand it. To be honest, I want to leave. I don't want to be under this person's leadership." But Lu Yuntian couldn't help but look at Wang He in surprise, showing a trace of interest. And Wang He saw it in his eyes and thought, no matter what Lu Yuntian says on the surface, he always has a grudge against Han Fei in his heart. After all, Han Fei has humiliated Lu Yuntian many times. As a venerable who doesn't have a face. Wang He said, "Han Fei asked the Immortal City for people on the pretext of treating us. But now, he can indeed heal the damage to our foundation. However, he also controls about 20% of the power of the entire Immortal City. What does this mean? He has only been in the Immortal City for a few days, but he has already mastered such a huge power? What is he going to do?" Lu Yuntian's heart did a flip, but he pretended to be puzzled and said, "He is the commander. If he wants to fight a war, he naturally needs someone. What's wrong with that?" Wang He shook his head. "This person is too domineering. He acts too fast. He said he would slaughter 10 sea monster great venerables. So far, he has already slaughtered 2. Do you think he is only going to kill the venerables by himself? Then what does he want us to do?" Lu Yuntian asked, "You mean he is going to use me next?" Wang He nodded. "And it will be an extremely dangerous use. This person is too arrogant, but he doesn't know much about the Immortal City. I am afraid he will have a problem. So, I don't want to work for him. I don't think you want to live under someone else's roof, do you?" Lu Yuntian was silent for a moment. When he was about to speak, the void above Firestone Island trembled, and Han Fei had already walked out of the crack. Immediately, Wang He patted Lu Yuntian's chest. "Old Lu, let's go and welcome General Han." Chapter 1567. As soon as Han Fei appeared on the island, he scanned the entire Firestone Island with his perception and found that no one was missing. When he saw Lu Yuntian and Wang He together, he just scanned them with his perception and didn't take it seriously at all. The old tortoise said, "You've already exposed yourself. What's the point of keeping this spy? He's a strong master. If you're not careful, he may ruin your plan." Han Fei grinned. "Old Yuan, those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. You even know the identity of a mere spy. You're so useful." In the past few days, everyone had figured out Han Fei's style. During the wartime, when Han Fei gave orders as the commander, they couldn't go against his will. Seeing that everyone was here, Han Fei said, "All semi-venerables, peak-level explorers, and advanced explorers, come forward. I hunted the 2 venerables and recovered my vitality. Today, I'm going to cure you." Now, Han Fei had only led them for a few days. Although they were very convinced by Han Fei, they couldn't say that he was invincible and brave. After all, it was also related to the situation of these people. In the cage, the survival crisis on the human side was relatively severe. People who lived on the edge of life and death for a long time generally wouldn't curry favor with their leaders too much. At this moment, when they heard that Han Fei had indeed hunted the 2 venerables, many of them gasped. Some people were looking forward to Han Fei's treatment and recovery to their peak state as soon as possible. In that way, they could also go to the battlefield. Heavenly awakening. Endless sage realm pillars of light descended. The movement on the Firestone Island attracted the attention of all the semi-kings. Unbeknownst to everyone, a barren grave reappeared on the Forbidden Island, and some jade girls raised their heads. Phew, this time, Han Fei consumed more than 3,300 years of vitality. And this was under the circumstance that the effect of the heavenly awakening divine art was more than twice that of the previous one. Otherwise, the vitality consumed would reach nearly 8,000 years. Han Fei remained calm on the surface and said, "Those who have recovered to their peak state evenly divide into 24 teams. Each venerable will have a team. I need to go into seclusion for a few days. During this period, no one is allowed to leave the island." In fact, Han Fei had been stopping these people not because he wanted to hide any trump cards. The reason was that it was unnecessary. After all, the frontline battlefield was only so big, and there was no big movement at all. Even 800 explorers couldn't do anything, let alone more than 300,000 people. So, since it was useless to go, why not go? As for Han Fei's so-called seclusion, he went into the general's mansion, set up an array, and left Firestone Island in the form of a black fog. After a while, Han Fei stood alone outside the Forbidden Island raging with astral winds for a while. It was different from other islands. The other islands had been inhabited by humans for many years. They had long been sealed off and transformed into safe places. Only the Taboo Island looked very strange. Inside this cage, when the chaotic energy swept towards the island, it would be devoured by the frequent void cracks that appeared in the air. As a result, although there were howling astral winds on the Forbidden Island, they were actually not very strong. This unique spatial feature gave the animals on the island a certain living space. Before setting foot on this island, Han Fei grabbed the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny. The scale of the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny moved quickly and finally fell directly on the even stick. This meant that this trip seemed to be uneventful and there was no gain. In fact, he might not even encounter the dangers that others spoke of. Han Fei didn't know if it was because he had already been to the Forbidden Island once. Immediately, Han Fei pointed his finger, and a wisp of chaotic energy fell on the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny. The Ruler of Destiny moved a little. A lucky hexagram. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. This was his confidence. With the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny, as long as he had the chaotic energy, he would be safe. He still remembered the last time he entered this Forbidden Island. It was very thrilling. Especially when he went to look for the dragon origin chi, he was almost killed. Since it was a lucky hexagram, he was relieved. At this moment, Han Fei pointed his finger again, and another wisp of chaotic energy fell on the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny. The ruler of the Nine Palaces, Fortune Ruler, moved slightly again, but it was still a little short of the auspicious sign. Do I need to use 2 wisps? Han Fei's face immediately turned green. He had already consumed 2 wisps of chaotic energy, which was half a year's worth of hard work. If the intensity of the power of truth wasn't high, the time would be 10 times longer. This meant that if he had changed his luck according to common sense, it would have taken him 5 years to do so. However, he had already used the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny and 2 wisps of chaotic energy. He couldn't give up now, could he? Another wisp of chaotic energy fell on the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny. However, the Nine-Palace Ruler of Destiny only touched the lucky hexagram and fell back. The old turtle said, "Don't panic. This means that it's difficult for you to form a lucky hexagram on this island. Of course, it's also possible that it's not easy to achieve your own goal. However, you have plenty of chaotic energy. You can use it again." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "What do you mean I have plenty of chaotic energy? I'm panicking if I use 4 wisps at once." Generally speaking, it's a problem for people below the advanced venerable level to have 4 wisps of chaotic energy in total. Only a prodigal like me dares to use it like this. Han Fei gritted his teeth and threw out another wisp of chaotic energy. Finally, the ruler landed on the auspicious hexagram. Whew! Han Fei took a long breath of relief and was about to land on the island, when he heard the old turtle say, "Are you going to meet the monster in that desolate tomb?" Han Fei nodded. Yes. The old turtle couldn't help but say, "Think about it carefully. This ruler should only change your luck temporarily. However, that guy can't be simple. How can such a large island disappear into thin air and appear in the outside world? When you came in, there was such a small gap, and it took you a lot of effort to get in. Have you ever considered how to get out of this island?" Han Fei was stunned for a moment. What the old turtle said made a lot of sense. How could such a large forbidden island get out so easily? That would be too disrespectful to the wall of death. Han Fei suddenly exclaimed, "Shoot! Old Yuan, do you think this wall of death has anything to do with that person?" The old turtle denied, "I'm not sure. Who knows? However, I think it should be related to him more or less. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense." The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. If it's related to him, it's unreasonable that he doesn't let humans out. He may be the one who set up the seal. Why did he set up this seal? Is it to prevent people from the other immortal palaces from getting in? However, on second thought, Chun Huangyan had been here too. Also, the unknown expert who was looking for Xia Shaochan had been here too. Those people weren't all kings. Even the Life Queen didn't dare to set foot on this place easily. Why could those people come in? Han Fei felt that there must be something else behind this. Han Fei and the old turtle suddenly said in unison, "It's to seal something." Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth and immediately said, "Yes. Yes, it must be to seal something. Otherwise, the existence of this seal wouldn't be so meaningful. Even if it was to block foreign enemies, there was no need to confine humans and beasts here. That person could create such a huge seal. It should be easy for him to destroy the sea demons." The old turtle asked, "Don't you have the nautical instrument?" Han Fei's lips twitched, and then he sneered. "Old Yuan, you want me to die, don't you? Even the ancient masters had to pay such a high price to seal something here. Do you think I can deal with it?" The old turtle said, "You have the nautical instrument and the ruler of destiny." Hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He naturally knew what the old turtle meant. The nautical instrument could find things, and the ruler of destiny could change one's luck. Combining the two, he could find secrets and avoid danger. Hiss! Han Fei took a deep breath. "Old Yuan, what do you think of this island?" The old turtle said, "I think if I have something to suppress, this island must be a good location." Han Fei swallowed and then took a breath. "I just changed my luck. Today is an auspicious day." Han Fei activated the Gemini Divine Technique and stepped onto the island in white mist. Because he was too fast, several space cracks directly cut Han Fei's body. However, Han Fei didn't care. He immediately activated the Universal Manifestation Instrument. When the nautical panorama pointed to the northwest, Han Fei cursed. The northwest was where the barren grave grassland was located. It seemed that the reason why the barren grave existed there was not only because of the war between the ancient human race and the dragon race. Obviously, there were other secrets there. Han Fei muttered to himself, "I have an auspicious divination. Nothing will happen to me." With this in mind, Han Fei went in the direction of the grassland again. This time, Han Fei was different from back then. At this moment, he was a venerable. As soon as he released his pressure, no creatures dared to approach him. Because there were too many space cracks, Han Fei didn't walk very fast and it only took him half a day to arrive. When approaching the barren grave, Han Fei coughed twice. With a thought in his mind, a huge king crab with a body length of 500 or 600 meters lay beside Han Fei. This was the corpse of the crab-eater demon. Han Fei dragged the crab's corpse into the grassland and shouted as soon as he came in, "Senior, I, Han Fei, have brought you food." Chapter 1568. Han Fei had been to this grassland once, and this time he came with the 9-palace ruler of Providence. However, after sensing the chaotic heavenly secrets, Han Fei was still a little scared. Han Fei said, "Senior, Han Fei. Last time, I said I would go out to find food for you. But when I came back, you were already gone. Who do you think I am? Every word I say is a nail in the coffin. Since I said I would bring it to you, I must bring it to you. Look, a king crab, this is a good thing. It can clear heat and detoxify, replenish bone marrow, nourish tendons, and promote blood circulation. The crab demon would never have thought that he would end up like this. He was dragged by someone to be sent as a gift, and it was even food. Han Fei walked in for only about 100 kilometers. Suddenly, when Han Fei looked back, he found that the border of the grassland had disappeared. His position in space had already changed. When Han Fei looked back again, he found that a barren grave appeared 100 meters away. Han Fei was speechless. Damn, do you have to be so ghostly when you appear? Can't you just show up properly? With a smile on his face, Han Fei dragged the crab to the barren grave. As he walked, he said, "Senior, you may not believe it. In order to hunt this crab, I paid a great price. Look, a king crab at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm. Its meat quality is definitely amazing." Clap, clap. Han Fei patted the claws of the king crab and said, "Look at these claws. They are full of meat and fat." Han Fei took a few steps and found that he was not even half a meter away from the barren grave. He immediately realized it was a habit of the barren grave. Thus, he turned his head away. Han Fei turned his head back and forth. Han Fei subconsciously took a step back. Because the barren grave was already 3 meters away from him, and the entrance was wide open. Don't you think this situation is going to scare someone to death? If 2 butterflies flew out of it, I wouldn't be so surprised. Han Fei closed his eyes and opened them again, and there was only darkness in front of him. This was different from the last time. The last time he fell into the barren tomb, he had to walk for quite a while before he saw that figure eating lotus roots. It was eating the White Shell Kingdom's prodigy, the green silk spirit. This time, when Han Fei opened his eyes, he saw a person standing 10 meters away from him. Beside the human figure was a large crab that was more than 3 meters long. Han Fei looked back. There were no more king crabs around him. It was obvious that the figure had taken it away. When he came here, he deliberately made the king crab so big. In any case, whether they were big or small, they were all the same. The energy it contained was the same as the effect of the meat. After becoming smaller, only the energy stored per unit volume and the quality of the meat became better. Crack! Han Fei saw that the figure was holding a crab leg in each hand, which was eaten with the shell and meat. Han Fei thought to himself, "Don't you feel a toothache?" Of course, he couldn't bring himself to ask this question. However, although this figure could directly eat the crab, it couldn't eat a lot in one bite like the green silk spirit did before. After eating this crab, he only ate the size of a small fist, which should be enough for this figure to eat for a while. "Good-do." Han Fei pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "Senior, I'm here to thank you. Last time, thanks to your guidance, I broke the blood pool, opened the dragon tomb, and swallowed the dragon energy to vent your anger." Han Fei saw that the figure was gnawing the crab leg while looking at him. He didn't know what it was thinking. Han Fei said, "Senior, I'm here to share 2 good things with you. There are 300 more crabs of the same level as the one in your hand. Half of them are much more delicious than this crab. It's said that the strongest one is only half a king. Are you interested?" The figure continued to gnaw the crab leg, but this time much faster. Han Fei wondered, was it attracted by the number of sea demon venerables? The figure thought for a moment and made a gurgling sound. Interested. When the figure said this, Han Fei's eyes lit up. As long as this person spoke, it meant that he could talk with him. Seeing that this figure was interested, Han Fei thought, what is this figure's interest? Of course, it's dragon slaying. At first glance, this person must have a grudge against the dragon race. The last time they met, he asked Han Fei to dig the dragon tomb before he left. It could be seen that his hatred was as deep as the sea. Han Fei just said that he was half a king, but the figure didn't respond. Could it be? This big shot is really a king? Han Fei made up his mind. He thought, It shouldn't be a big problem to cut off the dragon corpse's claw in Forge the Universe, right? Well, it's just a claw. When I meet the dragon soul, I'll say that it's gone when I found it. Han Fei took out a bloody dragon claw from Forge the Universe. This time, before Han Fei said anything, the figure threw away the crab leg and appeared in front of Han Fei in an instant. Its two big eyes were already staring at the dragon claw in Han Fei's hand. Giggle, gulp. Han Fei swallowed. This was the first time he had seen the real face of this figure. At a closer look, Han Fei found that the man was so skinny that he looked like a bag of bones. His face was full of wrinkles, like a mummy. His eyes were completely black, or rather, dry. How could this thing be a person? Crack! The next moment, the figure opened his mouth, revealing a mouthful of sawtooth-like steel teeth, and bit at the dragon claw in Han Fei's hand. Damn it! At the moment when this person bit half of the dragon claw, Han Fei directly let go, for fear that this thing would eat him too. Chomp, chomp. Unlike the venerable realm crab, this figure chewed the dragon meat like gummy candy and chewed for a long time before swallowing it. Han Fei grinned and watched as blood slid down the man's neck. Originally, this was a very disgusting thing. However, Han Fei soon found something wrong. He found that this mummy, the dry and wrinkled skin on this mummy's face was bulging. After he swallowed that half of the dragon claw, his skin, which was even more wrinkled than a mummy's, actually recovered quite a bit. He looked like a normal old man, with a skinny body and a face full of wrinkles. But at least he still looked like a human. The mummy looked at him, blood still dripping from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were a little rounder, but they were dark and nothing could be seen. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't give the complete dragon corpse to this guy. After all, this dragon corpse was still useful to him. He had to exchange it with the dragon soul. He could also exchange it for a drop of Azure Dragon Essence blood and a dragon transformation technique. Compared with being eaten by this mummy, Han Fei felt that it was better to exchange it for something else. Han Fei quickly took out a lot of sun moon shells and said, "Senior, let's talk. I only have this small piece. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself." However, Han Fei stuffed some dragon bones into one of the sun moon shells. These were all obtained under the blood pool on the Forbidden Island. He still had a lot of them. He could take a few out and say that the space of the sun moon shell was limited and he couldn't take them out. The mummy glanced at Han Fei's sun moon shell. Of course, he couldn't find anything good. There wasn't even an explorer-level sea demon inside. However, the mummy paused and immediately pointed at the sea-swallowing seashell stuffed with dragon bones. Bam! The sun moon shell burst, and two pieces of dragon bones more than 80 meters long suddenly appeared in this dark hole. The mummy clasped his hands, and the dragon bones began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, they became two bones only half a meter long. Han Fei's blood froze when he saw this. He blew up the sun moon shell with a finger. What the fuck is this? If the sun moon shell was just a shell, it would naturally be easy to break. However, the sun moon shell was not a shell. It was a space, but it appeared in the world in the form of a shell. It's true that you can break the void, but you can't crush the space. This was why the sea-swallowing seashell and the sun moon shell were still there in the Battle of the Strong Masters. Han Fei explained, "Senior, these are the dragon bones I found under the blood pool." He had thought that it had been too long since the dragon bone had appeared, and that it was no longer useful. Otherwise, I would have given them to you as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Junior's storage space is limited, and I can only store 2. I won't be able to store any more. The mummy gurgled a few times, sniffed, and in the dragon bones, a red light and the energy of the Great Way were sucked into his body. Immediately afterward, the 2 dragon bones turned into powder and disappeared without a trace. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Isn't this the chaotic chi? No, I wonder what that red light is? However, the energy of the Great Way is clearly the chaotic chi. And this mummy just sniffed and sucked back 2 wisps of the chaotic chi. Han Fei was speechless. How annoying. Damn it. I've been running around with a huge amount of chaotic aura all this time. Han Fei really wanted to complain to the old turtle, even if I don't know, don't you know? Or has the old turtle been hiding it from me? At that time, Han Fei felt terrible. It seems that after robbing high-end things in the future, I have to study them carefully. Han Fei thought to himself, fortunately, I have forged the universe. Otherwise, he would be finished. His dragon bones would definitely be eaten up by this mummy. Giggle. Wrong. Chapter 1569. Han Fei subconsciously licked his lips. Damn it, it's much easier than extracting chaotic energy from spiritual energy. All it took was a single breath of time for the other party to absorb the energy contained in the dragon bone. Han Fei asked, Senior, do you still need these dragon bones? At the beginning, I was too weak to get many dragon bones from the barren land. However, now that I've reached the venerable realm and have a lot of sun moon shells, do you still want them? If you do, I'll go and have a look again. Although it was an independent small world, there might still be some wreckage left behind. I'll go and see if I can get some more for you, Senior. In the blink of an eye, the mummy had disappeared in front of Han Fei. The crab claw that he had just thrown away had returned to his hand at some point. Giggle. Okay, Han Fei frowned. This guy didn't even let go of the dragon bones. It seemed that there were indeed great benefits in the dragon bones. Han Fei felt that he could go and have a look. At the beginning, he left in a hurry and was running for his life. So, what happened to that small world? He didn't know. Now that he had the nautical panorama, he could try to see if he could find the entrance to that small world again. Seeing that the mummy agreed, Han Fei immediately said, Yes. Senior, I'll go and have a look first. If there are any dragon bones left, I'll definitely get them for you. However, when Han Fei was about to leave, he saw that the mummy had already blocked his way. Han Fei's lips twitched. Senior, do you have any other orders? Giggle, the mummy said with difficulty, Dragon Claw. Where did you get it? Han Fei made up his mind. Han Fei said righteously, Senior, to tell you the truth, that dragon claw was cut off by me after a battle with a half-king level dragon. At that time, it was a narrow escape. I tried my best, used all my secret methods, and borrowed the power of strong masters to barely reach the half-king level for dozens of seconds. In this way, I barely escaped from the dragon claw. I wanted to hunt a big dragon for you, but my strength was limited, and I was really no match for it. Plus, crack, crack, crack. The mummy chewed the crab claw faster and faster. In just a few sentences, it had actually chewed the entire crab claw to pieces. Obviously, the battle with the azure dragon that Han Fei talked about attracted him. Is it? Han Fei's eyes lit up, full of resentment. Senior, it's in this cage. I was only able to escape into this cage after fighting with this dragon. It was the dragon that opened the way for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to enter. After I entered, I was attacked by a half-king called the Black Killer Snail King. Left with no choice, he found the humans' undead city. However, this junior suspects that the dragon is still in the cage, possibly within the boundaries of Black Blood City. Because it doesn't seem easy to get out of this cage. At this moment, Han Fei almost closed his eyes and started bragging. In any case, if there was a problem, he could just push it onto Black Blood City. At that time, who would be to blame if the dragon ran away? I'm telling the truth. If it really didn't work out, he could just use some dragon blood to frame them. Who could say for sure? Seeing the mummy chewing the crab claw again, Han Fei couldn't help but add fuel to the fire. Senior, this dragon must be hiding within the boundaries of Black Blood City. I'll definitely help you find it, Senior. However, it may take a few years. After all, my strength is still limited, and I can't defeat it. When my strength improves again, I'll definitely hunt that dragon for you. Dragon slaying technique? I'll teach you, huh? Han Fei was stunned. Damn it. You can even trick me into teaching you a great technique? Oh my god. Sure enough, this trip wasn't in vain. Sure enough, the 4 wisps of chaotic energy weren't wasted. The 9-palace ruler of destiny was truly the most precious treasure in the world. Han Fei immediately clasped his hands solemnly. Thank you for your teachings, Senior. I won't let you down. I'll learn the dragon slaying technique well and become a real dragon slayer in the future. Hey, senior, is it the great technique? Dragon bone sucking technique you just used? Baji. Giggle. Dragon swallowing technique. Han Fei's mind was racing. I didn't see the dragon slaying technique. I don't know whether it's good or not. But this dragon swallowing technique is definitely a good thing. It absorbs the chaotic energy so fast that it's like smoking. The next moment, the mummy approached Han Fei. The big hand that was as dry as rotten would press directly on Han Fei's head. Han Fei only felt a large area of light and shadow surging in his mind. Immediately afterward, an inexplicable great technique appeared in his mind. He took a closer look. Dragon slaying technique, see expansion realm. Introduction. The derivation of the ancient dragon slaying technique, the dragon slaying technique from the primeval era. After the changes of history, it's missing a lot. If you want to practice the dragon slaying technique, you must practice the Black-Yellow Sutra first. Deduction? Deduction consumption? Effect. The Black-Yellow Sutra is the blade. Disadvantages. Practicing this technique consumes a lot of energy. You must drink dragon blood and dragon chi to nourish yourself. Gulp. Han Fei was shocked by what he saw. Damn it. Are you kidding me? He just gave me a super great technique of the heaven expansion realm? Han Fei thought to himself, I haven't even figured out the venerable realm yet. You've already reached the sea expansion realm with me? What the hell am I going to do? Han Fei knew that this mummy must be delirious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given me a great technique of the sea expansion realm. I can't do anything about it. Besides, this is not the dragon slaying technique, but the dragon slaying technique. Also, if you want to practice the dragon slaying technique, you must practice the Black-Yellow Sutra first. What's the Black-Yellow Sutra? If you want to give me something, just give me everything, okay? You've made me happy for nothing. I can't use it. Isn't it the same as having nothing? Han Fei was about to speak, but in the blink of an eye, he returned to the grassland. There were no more desolate tombs around him. Han Fei was silent for a moment and walked out of the grassland with a determined look on his face. He didn't know who he was acting for. It wasn't until he left this grassland that Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Damn, I gave you my dragon claw for nothing. Somehow, I got a great technique that I can't practice at all. What the hell? Until this moment, the old turtle suddenly said, What's the dragon slaying technique about? Han Fei said with a black face, Bullshit. That's a great technique of the sea expansion realm. I can't practice it at all now. Han Fei didn't tell the truth. He only said that it was in the sea expansion realm, just to show that the mummy was definitely extraordinary. Han Fei was suspicious. Damn, it's not a king at all. He was probably a king when he was alive. Otherwise, how could he practice the dragon slaying technique? And the old turtle said in surprise, A great technique of the sea expansion realm. Then it seems that this person is indeed a king. Han Fei nodded. Yes, definitely a king. However, his mind was already in a mess. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given me such a great technique. By the way, old Yuan, do you know the Black-Yellow Sutra? Black-Yellow Sutra? The old turtle was stunned for a moment and said, Well, I seem to have some impression of it. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Do you know what technique this is? The old turtle said, This is not a technique, this is a cultivation technique. It seems to be a cultivation technique of the human race. It is said that it can produce heaven and earth black-yellow chi. However, it is definitely not the real black-yellow chi. It may just be the shadow of a wisp of black-yellow chi. Han Fei asked, Where can I get it? The old turtle said, How do I know? I should be able to find it in the age of gods. Where can I find it now? I really don't know. My body has been sleeping for tens of thousands of years. Why do you suddenly ask this question? Han Fei didn't hide it and said directly, If you want to practice the dragon slaying technique, you must practice the Black-Yellow Sutra first. The old turtle immediately understood and couldn't help but laugh. It seems that the great technique he gave you is indeed useless for the time being. Then do you still want to find the dragon bones for him now? Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said, Yes. Why not? He also has the dragon swallowing technique. Look at him, he can absorb a mouthful of chaotic chi like a child. In one breath, he sucked out 2 strands. Did you see that? Oh no, Old Yuan. Did you already know that there was chaotic chi in the dragon bones? The old turtle immediately denied. I didn't know. I have never been in contact with dragons. If I had known that there was chaotic chi in the dragon bones, I would have secretly absorbed it. Maybe I would have sucked it dry and you wouldn't even know it. Han Fei thought so. That's true. According to the old Yuan's personality, there was an 80% chance that he would secretly absorb the chaos energy behind his back. The old turtle said, I think if he is a sea expansion realm expert, you may not be able to practice the dragon swallowing technique. Don't screw it up. Han Fei snorted. If I can't practice it now, I can practice it after I become a sea expansion realm expert. What a great opportunity! Why don't you take it when you can? While the two talked, Han Fei flew to the blood pool. On the way to the blood pool, Han Fei looked in the direction of the Death Valley from time to time. Because in Forge the Universe, the Death Bone Sun was trembling slightly. It should be resonating with the Jade Girl on the other side of the Death Valley. Han Fei thought to himself, since I'm here, I'll go and take a look after the blood pool later. I have to keep a secret. If I can't deal with the mummy, I can consider the Jade Girl. Could he ask her to come out and help him in battle? Chapter 1570. When Han Fei arrived at the Mountain of the Dragon Origin Chi, he found that this place had become a paradise for beasts. Yes, this was probably the only place where beasts existed except the 10,000 Beast Island. A few years ago, when this place collapsed, the Dragon Origin Chi escaped from here. Countless beasts perished in that collapse. However, there were also countless creatures who absorbed the Dragon Origin Chi. Therefore, when Han Fei came here today, he found that there were peak-level law enforcers and even explorers everywhere. There were as many as 50,000 of them. Of course, there must be no Dragon Origin Chi here now. It should have been swallowed by these tens of thousands of beasts. In the sky above this collapsed land, there were space cracks everywhere. The beasts here only cultivated in safe places and never approached the space cracks. Han Fei pondered and asked, Old Yuan, can you still find the small world below? The old turtle snorted. Don't you have the nautical instrument? Why are you asking me? That small world has obviously disintegrated. The only thing you can try is to find. Is there a fragment of that small world? Don't forget. Last time I saw the giant gate, there was an emperor guarding it. Now the gate and the statue of the emperor are gone. Han Fei nodded slightly. In his memory, the gate should be at the end of the blood pool. However, at this moment, the blood pool had dried up and Han Fei didn't see the giant gate. Han Fei found the right place, stretched out his hand, and a huge knife light appeared in the air. Chilla! The collapsed mountain was cut by Han Fei again. A huge knife mark more than 3,000 meters long cut more than 300 meters deep in the place in Han Fei's memory. As soon as Han Fei's knife light appeared, all the beasts fled. Here, there was a super strong master that they couldn't defeat. Of course, the farther away they stayed, the better. Han Fei didn't care about them at all. In the future, if humans had a chance to cooperate with the beasts, they could find someone to take these beasts away. No, there's no trace at all. Old Yuan, did I remember the wrong place? The old turtle said, I remember this place too. Perhaps, the door you saw, it itself is the entrance to a world. Now, even the world has collapsed, how can there still be an entrance? Han Fei nodded slightly. Now that things had come to this point, this was the only explanation. Han Fei immediately secretly used the nautical panorama. The needle spun rapidly and soon pointed to a place less than 100 miles to the west, where a mountain had collapsed. Han Fei's eyes lit up. After a few steps, Han Fei came to the place where the mountain collapsed. He glanced around, only to see that Han Fei suddenly drew his knife and attacked. A spatial crack appeared. Within the spatial crack, a large piece of dragon bone was revealed. There really is one. Against the turbulence of the void, Han Fei forced his way into this space. When he entered, he found that there was less than 3,000 meters of space left and only 18 scattered dragon bones. Indeed, this small world had collapsed a long time ago, and it was no longer stable. Therefore, after Han Fei quickly stuffed these dragon bones into the Sun Moon shell, the small world exploded. As a result, before Han Fei had time to retreat, he was already covered in wounds. Tens of thousands of spatial cracks cut Han Fei's body. Even though Han Fei immediately protected himself with a Taoist pattern array, he still couldn't resist it. If it were an ordinary person, even an advanced venerable, he would definitely be hacked to death by such crazy spatial slashes. However, who was Han Fei? He had already cultivated an indestructible golden body. This also gave Han Fei the capital to fight against the void chasm brainlessly. Son of a bitch, it seems that even if there are fragments of the small world, I can't just enter this damn place. Han Fei appeared above this mountain and cast a holy light technique on himself. The flesh that had been cut was rapidly recovering. You can even find fragments of the small world from here? Suddenly, Han Fei turned his head. He grabbed at the void, and a knife light condensed from a spatial crack slashed out. What kind of technique is this? Han Fei took a closer look, only to find that the newcomer turned out to be a child who looked only 7 or 8 years old. This child was still bald, but he was wearing a black robe, and his lips were black, and there was a black dot tattooed between his eyebrows. The child stretched out his hand, and a huge black shield blocked the attack. Clang! A loud explosion and shockwaves rang out on the island, causing the surrounding space to crack once more. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Golden boy? Han Fei reacted on the spot just now. Han Fei didn't realize that someone was coming. So, without thinking too much, he just slashed with a backhand. However, even this backhand slash was not something that anyone could take. If a mid-level venerable took it, he would be cut into 2 pieces if he was not careful. Han Fei asked in his heart, "Old Yuan, why didn't you inform me?" The old turtle said, "I didn't expect that there would be someone here. Besides, this person's whereabouts are mysterious, and his strength is at least half a king. Although in my opinion, half a king is almost the same as a false king. Maybe this is a false king of the human race?" Han Fei's heart trembled. The old turtle's evaluation was a bit too high. Of course, Han Fei knew that there must be a false king in the immortal city. However, it never occurred to him that the false king of the human race turned out to be this golden boy who seemed to be only 7 or 8 years old. The golden boy asked calmly, "Are you Han Fei?" After all, he knew that he was facing a being that was likely to be a false king. Han Fei was more or less uneasy. Han Fei nodded. "That's me." The golden boy smiled casually and said in a childish voice, "When the Forbidden Island disappeared, I wasn't there. When I came back from the Forbidden Island, this place had already collapsed. At that time, I discovered that there was a mysterious power hiding next to my house." Han Fei didn't feel the slightest threat from the golden boy. Since the golden boy knew that he was Han Fei and on the immortal city's side, he wouldn't attack him. After all, the golden boy was on the human race's side. So Han Fei relaxed and asked, "Then what?" The golden boy said casually, "Most of the fragments of the small world have already disappeared in the void turbulence. Although I also found a few fragments, these dragon bones are useless." "Until you came to look for the dragon bones?" Han Fei was confused. "You know about dragon bones?" The golden boy explained, "Many people have entered the grassland on the island. Not all of them died there. At least, we learned about the existence of dragons. However, in the long history of the cage, such a creature had never appeared even once. I don't know much about this race, but you should know how to use the dragon bones, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to look for them." Han Fei was amused. "These bones are useless to me. However, I'm not sure about the grassland." Han Fei wondered if the golden boy had ever seen a desolate grave. If this golden boy lived on the Forbidden Island, he should have been there before. The golden boy said, "That's what I'm curious about. You are the only person I've seen who can enter the grassland at will. I guess it's not your first time there, is it? For example, when you were in the outside world, you asked the Jade Girl for the Death Bone Sun." Han Fei immediately retorted, Hey, let's talk about it." She gave it to me, not what I asked for. The golden boy slightly shrugged and didn't argue with Han Fei. He just said casually, the death bone sun is not a very good thing, and its use is limited. However, since I've given it to you, I won't ask for it again. I'm just curious about what's in the grassland. Han Fei asked in confusion, you've never been there? Jin Tong said with a smile, not everyone can enter that prairie. Not everyone who enters can come out alive. Especially venerable ones. The golden boy grabbed a few sun moon shells and said, there are 63 dragon bones here. For me, or for human cultivators, they are useless. In exchange, you tell me the secrets of the grassland, and these dragon bones are yours. Han Fei's heart did a flip. According to what he saw, the 60 dragon bones equaled more than 60 strands of chaotic energy. Apart from the chaotic energy, there might be a mysterious power unique to the dragon bones. It was a good deal. At least, Han Fei was almost certain that even if he told the golden boy what was on the grassland, the golden boy wouldn't be able to defeat that figure. However, Han Fei still asked, are you a half-king or a false king? The golden boy was briefly stunned and then smiled casually. Why do you ask? Han Fei said, whether you are a half-king or a false king, you are not as strong as the one on the grassland. The one on the grassland is at least a king. The golden boy's pupils constricted. That's impossible. There is no king in the cage. How can there be a king-level expert? Han Fei said with a smile, since you know the news about the dragon race, you must have seen it on this island, right? Then, you should know that there was once a strong expert who fought the dragon in the wild. The dragon died, but that person seems to be still alive. The golden boy was silent for a moment. I always thought that the secret of the cage was hidden on the grassland. But now, it seems to be different from my guess. Han Fei thought to himself, you're right. I think so too. That deranged guy can freely enter and exit the wall of death on this island. It would be strange if he didn't have the wall of death, which is the secret of the cage, on him. Han Fei said, is the dragon bone in your hand mine now? The golden boy didn't respond but asked back. So, that person is a human being? Han Fei nodded. The golden boy asked, since he needs the dragon bone, why can't I give it to him in exchange for information? Han Fei was amused and opened his hands. Feel free. The golden boy looked at Han Fei for a while and eventually said, fine. If anything happens to me, the immortal city will be doomed. You claim to be a human king. I'll leave this secret to you. The golden boy threw the sun moon shell to Han Fei casually. Han Fei caught it and asked in confusion, are you not afraid that I'm a liar? The golden boy slightly shook his head. Because you are walking on the path of a king. Chapter 1571. After chatting with Jin Tong, Han Fei roughly confirmed Jin Tong's strength. He must be a fake king on the human side. The sentence, if he dies, the immortal city will be doomed, was enough to show his identity. Jin Tong had also confirmed that Han Fei was walking on the path of a king. How did he know that? However, he was right. Han Fei had been walking on the path of a king ever since he became an explorer, especially after he returned to the yin-yang sky. In addition, there was another reason. Human beings had been struggling to survive in the cage for too long. Now, someone needed to break all this. Han Fei's appearance indeed gave Jin Tong hope. The strong had their own resolution. For example, Jin Tong gave the dragon bones to Han Fei even though he knew they were good stuff. Han Fei nodded and asked, who is stronger, you or the Black Killer Snail King? Jin Tong said calmly, if it's a life-and-death battle, I'll die and he'll be heavily wounded. After hearing this, Han Fei nodded slightly. This answer was enough. Hearing Han Fei's question, Jin Tong couldn't help but ask, there are so many people to play with you. Is it enough to kill 10? Han Fei said with a smile, we'll see how many I can kill after the battle. If it's not enough, I'll make up for it. Jin Tong nodded slightly. Okay. After that, Jin Tong turned into a cloud of black mist and dissipated. Han Fei didn't expect that he would meet Jin Tong in this way on the Forbidden Island. After this meeting, Han Fei immediately went to the grassland. Half a day had passed, and the 3 chances of the nautical multitude globe had been used up. However, Han Fei couldn't wait. After all, the 9-palace ruler of Providence measured his luck every day. This meant that every day, the number of one's luck would more or less be a little different. It wasn't easy for him to make friends with the mummy. No matter what, he had to get his hands on the dragon-devouring skill, right? He couldn't waste today's luck. Could he uncover the secret of the cage for now? However, if he could get the dragon-swallowing technique, the speed at which he obtained the chaotic aura would definitely be greatly increased. 2 hours passed. Han Fei stepped into the grassland again. As soon as he entered the grassland, Han Fei shouted crazily, Senior, I'm back. Senior, I got the dragon bones. As soon as Han Fei turned his head, he found that the desolate grave had appeared. Now, when Han Fei saw the desolate tomb again, he didn't feel scared at all. As long as he lured them with information about the dragons or a large amount of food, Han Fei felt that this desolate tomb would welcome anyone. Sure enough, after just a few blinks, he had already appeared in the desolate grave. This time, half a day later, the mummy was still eating. The king crab only had 1 leg left. Even the crab shell was gone. So, this mummy even eats the shell? He wasn't even afraid of being disgusted. Crack! The mummy looked at Han Fei while gnawing. Because it had eaten an extra piece of the azure dragon's flesh, the mummy's body had recovered quite a bit. It now looked like a little old man. His eyes slowly became a little rounder. Han Fei was overjoyed. Senior, you won't believe me. Above the blood pool, the small world had collapsed, but fortunately, there were a few remnant fragments. I took the risk of being shredded to pieces by the spatial turbulence and forced my way in. I managed to retrieve 52 dragon bones for you. Not only did Han Fei not contribute the dragon bones he found, but he also pocketed a dozen dragon bones that Jin Tong gave him. More importantly, he already knew the secret of the dragon bones. If he handed over one, he would lose a wisp of chaotic energy. Look at these 50 dragon bones. That was 50 wisps of chaotic energy. When the power of Tao was thin, it would take him 10 years to accumulate 50 wisps of chaotic energy. If he didn't have enough power of Tao, he would have to accumulate 50 wisps of chaotic energy for 100 years. Therefore, Han Fei felt that he was already generous enough. He had already thrown out 100 years' worth of chaotic energy. Giggle. Okay. The mummy casually threw away half of the crab leg. In a step he came to Han Fei. He crushed the sun moon shell, and a lot of dragon bones appeared. But in the mummy's hand, the huge dragon bones shrank one after another, and finally turned into short bones several meters long. This time, Han Fei saw that the mummy opened his mouth full of sharp teeth and inhaled, and the chaotic energy, together with the weird red energy, crawled into his body. After sucking more than 20 dragon bones in a row, the mummy's body emitted a crackling sound. Han Fei was very familiar with that sound. It was the sound of bones being put together. This meant that before this, many of the bones in the dried corpse were broken. And now, he was repairing the damage to his body. At this moment, this mummy looked more and more like a decaying old man. Han Fei thought, how should I mention it? But then Han Fei thought, anyway, this mummy is delirious. Will there be a problem if I just tell it to him? Han Fei said, Senior, I'm leaving in a moment. A large number of sea demons in Black Blood City protect the Azure Dragon and bully human beings. I can't tolerate it. Although I'm not strong enough, I'll try my best to hunt the Azure Dragon for you. By the way, Senior, I find that practicing the dragon-slaying art seems to require a lot of energy. Junior can see that Senior's dragon-devouring art is indeed extraordinary. Well, can you teach me, Senior? Giggle. The mummy had sucked almost 30 dragon bones. Hearing Han Fei asking for the dragon-swallowing art, he raised his head and looked at Han Fei for a long time. Han Fei felt a little guilty. He thought to himself, shouldn't I ask for such a great art? Giggle. The mummy directly grabbed Han Fei's head, In fact, if it weren't for the fact that Han Fei only had half of his body and the other half was hiding in Forge the Universe, he wouldn't have let the mummy grab him. In the next moment, Han Fei felt that a great art was transmitted into his head again. Dragon Swallowing Art, Unrated. Introduction. The dragon swallowing art is a great swallowing art that can directly absorb the origin energy of dragons. This is a primeval art that is only effective for dragons or creatures with dragon bloodlines. It can swallow dragon energy, cut off dragon luck, consolidate origin, and refine the body with dragon power. Deduced art, not deductible effect. It can swallow dragon power, dragon energy, and dragon luck. Dragon energy can refine the body, dragon energy can strengthen the body, and dragon luck can change one's luck. Disadvantage. Once discovered by the dragons, they won't stop until they die. Han Fei's eyes lit up when he saw the word unrated. Just now, Han Fei was afraid that a Pioneer Sea Realm expert would suddenly appear. That thing would be useless to him. After all, he couldn't practice it yet. The unrated art meant that he could practice it at any level. Also, this art seemed to be extremely valuable. At least, it was very effective for his current situation. Han Fei was secretly overjoyed. He finally got the dragon swallowing art. It seemed that he hadn't contributed so many dragon bones for nothing. On this island, Han Fei actually had two more things to figure out. Firstly, was there anything sealed or suppressed under this grassland? Was there only this old guy in this barren tomb? If so, why did the nautical panorama point here just to let him meet this old man? That was unlikely. However, Han Fei didn't dare to ask about this. What if the thing that the Wall of Death wanted to seal was the mummy and this grassland? What should he do? Although it didn't make sense. If this mummy was going to be sealed, it would be enough to seal him. Why did it have to seal such a large sea area? But what if the person who set up the seal thought it was necessary to seal this old guy with this sea area? Wouldn't it remind this old guy if he asked now? It was obvious that he had indeed been sealed off here by someone. Giggle. At this moment, Han Fei had just received a great art. Before he had time to think, he saw that there were only 5 dragon bones left in the old guy's hand. The breath of this mummy began to grow heavier. His body was much taller than before. The image of the skinny old man changed slightly at this moment, turning into a tall, skinny old man. Han Fei also saw that the old man's eyeballs, although still a little shriveled, could already move. Han Fei thought to himself, did I feed them too much? He was almost sure that if he chopped off another dragon claw and gave it to this mummy, he might be able to restore his former appearance. Maybe he could even regain some of his consciousness. Roar. When the mummy swallowed the last dragon bone, suddenly, Han Fei found that he was already standing at the entrance of the tomb. However, he was not outside the tomb, but inside the tomb. He saw that the mummy's hands were clasped at the entrance of the tomb. There was an invisible force there, blocking the way of Han Fei's mummy. Roar, crack, crack, crack. Han Fei saw cracks appearing inexplicably in the void at the entrance of the tomb, and they were slowly spreading. As these cracks became denser and larger, Han Fei also saw that the mummy's skin dried up again. Han Fei thought to himself, I seem to have made a fucking mistake. Gotcha. As if an invisible mirror suddenly shattered, the next moment, the mummy disappeared. Han Fei hurriedly rushed out of the barren tomb. Tens of meters away, the mummy, which had just straightened its body, actually slumped down again. In his heart, the old turtle reminded him, he's confused. Fortunately, he consumed too much energy to break the barrier of the tomb. But from today on, the tomb can no longer trap him. As soon as the old turtle spoke, the mummy suddenly turned around and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing. Old turtle, can't you wait? Why are you nagging in someone else's territory? The mummy seemed to remember Han Fei. Confused for a moment, it asked, who am I? Han Fei was shocked. Did the old guy speak fluently? Han Fei hurriedly said, Senior, you are a dragon slayer. The mummy's body trembled. Yes, dragon slayer, dragon slayer. Where are the dragons? Han Fei swallowed and immediately said, the dragons are protected by Black Blood City. Black Blood City is trying to destroy the human race. The mummy roared, "How dare you!" Then Han Fei saw this person crazily rush to the edge of the grassland. Boom! In an instant, on this grassland, in the arrays that Han Fei thought were useless, purple chains suddenly emerged. The chains immediately latched onto the mummy. Immediately afterward, countless purple lightning bolts bombarded it. In a moment, endless purple lightning roared out and swept across this world indiscriminately. Although these lightning bolts were all aimed at the mummy. But occasionally, an electric arc hit Han Fei. Just one electric arc made half of Han Fei's body numb. The mummy, as if it couldn't be killed, was still struggling and roaring, "You're not dead, I know you're not dead. You want to seal me here? You're dreaming." Han Fei saw that the mummy was struggling, and purple chains were breaking one after another. But suddenly, a purple line bombarded Han Fei's body. In an instant, Han Fei's body disintegrated. Twin in one. Han Fei suddenly disappeared from the grassland. When Han Fei came back to himself, he was shocked. Without hesitation, Han Fei landed on the island and flew in the direction of the grassland again. The old turtle couldn't help but ask, "You've already come out. Why are you still going there?" Ignoring the impact of the void cracks, Han Fei accelerated crazily and said casually, "Who did he say was not dead? It must be about the secret of the cage. I have to go there. This is not crazy. Let's see what else he can say." Chapter 1572. When he came back, Han Fei was also thinking, "What level of power was that just now? I was just touched by a bolt of lightning, and the white mist body was blown up." Han Fei couldn't determine the level of the lightning. However, the power of that purple lightning definitely exceeded the combat power of the so-called half-king level. After all, Han Fei had once borrowed the combat power of a half-king level, but it was far less powerful and terrifying than that purple lightning. Han Fei thought to himself, "Damn it, isn't this a very bad divination?" But he was more cautious. Even if it was a very auspicious divination, he still came in as a white mist to see what was going on. Therefore, even if the white mist body was smashed, it wouldn't be able to kill him. The distance of 10,000 kilometers was not a distance at all for Han Fei. However, when Han Fei came to the periphery of the grassland again, he had been torn all over by the void cracks. The ultra-quality battle suit on his body had been completely shattered at this time. On the grassland, it looked very calm from a distance, as if nothing had happened. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, is it over so soon? Just now, there was a shocking purple lightning bombardment, but now there was nothing left? Or is it already over? Of course, when he really set foot on the grassland, Han Fei didn't dare to be careless. After all, he lost 200 years of vitality when he was blown up just now. So, Han Fei activated the white mist body again. In order to prevent accidents, Han Fei also set up coiled turtle arrays one after another, and finally condensed into a super-large coiled turtle array. In addition to the Great Coiled Turtle Array, Han Fei also set up an 8-line life-locking array to lock his life gate. After doing all this, Han Fei stepped into the grassland again. However, as soon as he stepped on the grassland, Han Fei saw purple lightning surging all over the sky. So I can only see it when I come in? At this time, the mummified old guy was holding a blade and hitting the purple lightning horizontally. Who knew where his blade came from? With just a casual grab, a khaki-colored blade light burst out from his hand. That saber light easily cut through the purple lightning. At this time, the place where Han Fei entered was still on the edge. So at this moment, no purple lightning could hit him. The mummified old man roared crazily, "Do you think you can trap me? I will eventually return and slaughter you under my blade." Han Fei was very sure that this old guy must be crazy. However, there seemed to be a great secret hidden in his crazy words. In the sky above the prairie, purple lightning surged violently. The old fellow had been struck by several lightning bolts, but it seemed as if nothing had happened. Han Fei frowned. Is this old guy so strong? Even his white mist body couldn't withstand the purple lightning, but this old guy seemed to be able to deal with it with ease. Just what level was the power of this purple lightning? At the very least, he had to have the strength of a half-king. However, even such a purple thunderbolt could be shattered in the mummy's hands with a single slash. Sometimes, when a blade swept towards him, Han Fei had to dodge quickly. If he didn't dodge, he would definitely be struck to death. Just now, when the mummy opened the barren tomb, it must have used up a large amount of energy. Now, this thunderous momentum did not seem to have weakened at all. The two sides were locked in a stalemate for a long time. The old man seemed to be a little exhausted, and his whole body became shriveled again. Obviously, he was unable to break the seal on this grassland. After holding on for a long time, the purple thunderbolt had obviously weakened a bit, but the old guy seemed to be unable to hit it anymore. Han Fei had been watching from the side, wondering if he should help this mummy-like old guy or not. If he was still sealed by this old guy, it was unlikely that he would continue to get benefits. Frowning, Han Fei immediately threw a sun-moon shell at him and shouted, "Senior, tell me, how on earth can I break this seal? Who is still alive? What secrets are there under this grassland? I will do my best to get you out." As soon as the mummy saw the sun-moon shell that Han Fei threw at him, his body instantly appeared in front of it. Gotcha! 10 dragon bones appeared, and the mummy took a deep breath and swallowed more than 10 streaks of chaotic energy and red unknown power. At that moment, the mummy became spirited and shouted again, "Cunning dragon, when I get out, I will definitely tear you into pieces." The mummy used its hand as a saber and swung the saber repeatedly. As it destroyed the purple lightning, it shouted, "Evil dragon, you slaughtered millions of my people. Just wait for the day I get out, and I'll do my best to slaughter your dragon race." Hiss? Dragon race? The dragon race slaughtered billions of humans? That's why this person hates the dragon clan so much, and that's why he's always thinking about slaying dragons? In less than 10 minutes, Han Fei felt that the mummy couldn't hold on any longer, so he shouted again, "Senior, I can help you slay the dragon, but you have to tell me something. What secrets are there under this grassland? What secrets are there in this cage?" As if knowing that he couldn't fight anymore, the mummy turned his head to look at Han Fei and glanced at him. It was this look that made Han Fei suddenly feel that the whole world was still. Han Fei only felt that the picture in front of him changed, and he appeared in a strange world that he had never seen before. At first, Han Fei's position was extremely high, and the scene in front of him changed. In the hundreds of thousands of miles of territory, countless human beings were bustling about. Countless trivial pictures were fleeting, like flowers in a mirror and the moon in the water. However, Han Fei saw 100,000 strong men who were practicing martial arts in a huge square. These people were bare-chested, with bulging muscles and sweating profusely. Their chests and backs were engraved with identical dragon patterns. In Han Fei's perception, since they loved dragon tattoos so much, the dragon must be their faith and totem. In fact, it was true, because Han Fei saw a grand sacrifice. In the ceremony, the drums were like thunder, and countless people were praying, shouting, offering sacrifices to a huge azure dragon statue. The picture changed again. Han Fei passed through all kinds of towns and cities. The layout of these places was somewhat similar to that of the Yin-Yang Heaven. On the streets, people came and went, and it was very lively. However, these didn't seem to be the focus, because Han Fei saw a winding giant city standing in the sky. In an instant, a gloomy air blew over. Han Fei raised his head again, only to see a 10,000-meter-long azure dragon, tearing the sky and the earth with its claws, spewing wind and sword rain from its mouth, slaughtering the city below with all its might. There was more than one such azure dragon, but there were many of them. When Han Fei saw this scene, he was a little horrified. "Wait, they like you so much. Why are you offering sacrifices to them? Why are you slaughtering them?" However, those azure dragons killed countless humans with their mouths opened and closed. The mountains in the distance collapsed one after another, and the city was also filled with smoke. Above the floating city was the Immortal Palace, which was completely shattered and full of smoke and fire. At this moment, Han Fei did realize that this was one of the 36 immortal palaces. The reason was that the continuous floating city looked like the body of a dragon. But just now, Han Fei didn't see the dragon head part. And this big city above the sky, when tilted down, was obviously in the shape of a dragon head. Dragon subduing heaven? In Han Fei's mind, the first thing that came to mind was the dragon subduing heaven that old Han once mentioned. However, it seemed to be different from the dragon subduing heaven that old Han mentioned. According to old Han, the dragon subduing heaven was symbolized and worshipped by the legendary ancient dragon. But in fact, a creature like a dragon had never appeared at all. However, this was obviously not right. If this was not the dragon subduing heaven, where could it be? In the entire 36 immortal palaces, only they had contact with creatures like dragons, even if it was just as a spiritual belief. Sacrifice? Wow, Han Fei suddenly thought of something. How did the old turtle come here? He summoned the old turtle after he practiced the majestic mystic spell to the extreme. At that time, the old turtle was also ferocious and seemed to be able to kill him. This dragon subduing heaven must have encountered a similar thing. However, they weren't as lucky as him. The dragons that should have disappeared from the sight of human beings, for some reason, came again. And these azure dragons were not friendly. They were slaughtering the dragons subduing heaven. Immediately afterward, the picture turned into various chasing battles. The battlefield between human beings and dragons began. From this picture, Han Fei saw a young man walking out of the collapsed immortal palace. The young man visited everywhere, asking for help, but was repeatedly rejected. After all, the battle between human beings and dragons didn't affect other immortal palaces. This young expert might be a king. Although he didn't get any help, he didn't want to be outdone. He led a number of strong masters and began his career of slaying dragons. Han Fei even followed the young man to a relic. Han Fei saw the fish book in the young man's hand. There were dragon slaying technique, Xian Yellow Sutra, dragon swallowing technique, and other great skills. Seeing this, Han Fei realized that these things didn't belong to this man, but were obtained in some relic. The last picture Han Fei saw was that this young expert led the strong masters of the human race to chase an azure dragon to a barren sea area. They found the Wall of Death. Wait, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. This Wall of Death had existed long before these people and the azure dragon came? In theory, the dragon subduing heaven and the yin-yang heaven were established at the same time. If this person was from the dragon subduing heaven, then his era was almost the Age of Doom. In fact, Han Fei knew that although the 36 immortal palaces used to be allies, they had more or less changed. For example, the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven had moved away. For example, something must have happened to the golden crow heaven. Otherwise, why would the fire tree come to the waterwood heaven? For example, the king of the dragon subduing heaven might have been obsessed with killing dragons. Also, the immortal palaces like the Grand Pure One and the Wuji heaven that I mentioned were clearly enemies. For a moment, Han Fei was confused. Sea demons and dragons wreak havoc on all the races in the world. Why are you still fighting among yourselves? Although Han Fei thought a lot in his mind, he couldn't change history. At this moment, the story of this young man didn't seem to be over yet. The young man and the azure dragon fell into the Wall of Death and were both seriously injured. In the end, the young man led his subordinates and dismembered the azure dragon at the risk of his life. He performed some kind of Shen Tian technique and swallowed the dragon's body. It was like a snake swallowing an elephant. Then, the young man placed the dragon's head in the south and the dragon's tail in the north, separating them forever. By doing this, the young man probably meant, even if I die, I won't let you have a good time. I'll let you be separated from your head and tail forever and never have a good end. Han Fei thought to himself, this old guy is really ruthless. But unexpectedly, the plot was reversed. However, when the young man was dying, there was still a wisp of the slaughtered azure dragon's soul that was still alive. Taking advantage of the young man's half-death, the azure dragon launched a sneak attack. Not only did it kill the young man's subordinates, but it also suppressed the young man under this grassland. Immediately, the young man exploded in anger. He regretted not being able to kill the Tsang dragon even after so much effort. So, he tried his best to severely injure the Azure Dragon's remnant soul again. Unfortunately, this didn't completely kill the Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon's remnant soul fled out of the cage. The furious young man died with his eyes wide open. However, this young man actually set up a strange altar and attracted infinite darkness. In the end, even he and his subordinates who had just died all turned into undead creatures. Seeing this, Han Fei's scalp went numb. So, this mummy is already an undead creature? How the hell do you look like an undead creature? Chapter 1573. Maybe this was the story of the mummy. From the beginning to the end, Han Fei didn't even know his name, nor did anyone write it down. After all, there was no sound in the picture, so he must have used voice transmission. Therefore, Han Fei had no idea. However, Han Fei could tell that this mummy should be the master of the dragon-subduing sky, a real king. After all, the requirement of the dragon-slaying technique was the sea expansion realm, which undoubtedly proved his identity. When Han Fei came back to his senses, he found that the lightning arcs around him had weakened. Although this was a high-level array set up by the Dragon Clan, no matter how powerful it was, it still needed energy to maintain. This cage could only constantly absorb energy from the outside and deprive the mummy of the opportunity to obtain energy. In this way, it could restrain the mummy. And the mummy also had extraordinary means. He had refined the desolate tomb into his own, making it feel like home. Although this home was imprisoned, and even leaving the house had to overcome the restrictions of the outside world. However, Han Fei's appearance broke this rule. After all, Han Fei was just feeding the mummy the chaotic energy. And it was a lot of chaotic energy. At least, in Han Fei's eyes, it was a lot of chaotic energy. Besides, Han Fei just fed it a piece of real dragon meat. Han Fei's help seemed to have given the mummy the power to break the rules. Therefore, he just broke free from the shackles of the desolate tomb and walked to the grassland. At this moment, the lightning arcs had weakened, but the mummy had no more power. The desolate tomb appeared, and the mummy seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. His voice once again became hoarse and intermittent. One day, I will return. Han Fei naturally didn't intend to destroy the array on the grassland. After all, no matter how weak the power of lightning was, it was still the power of the sea expansion realm. If he went up, he would just be killed. Besides, Han Fei wasn't sure what this old guy would do after he let him go. Maybe he would fight his way into Black Blood City. Of course, he cared more about slaying the dragon. He would definitely look for the Azure Dragon all over the world. If he managed to break free from the cage or destroy the wall of death, Han Fei would not be able to accept that. Therefore, Han Fei only shouted to the dry corpse that was about to enter the grave, "Senior, I will certainly try my best to find the whereabouts of the Azure Dragon and slay it as soon as possible." Hearing Han Fei's words, the mummy pushed Han Fei out of the grassland. As for himself, he once again fell into the crack of the desolate tomb. After leaving the grassland, the old turtle couldn't help but say, "You actually succeeded in deceiving him. Just now, you seem to have fallen into a strange state. What happened?" Han Fei shook his head. "It's just some stories about this person which happened after the Age of Doom. Even if I told you, you wouldn't know. I have something important to ask you. Let's return to Firestone Island first." Han Fei didn't want to stay here for long, although the information he learned today was shocking enough. However, that was only a grudge between the mummies and the dragons. Moreover, this happened after the 36 profound heavens, after the Age of Chaos. At least, Han Fei knew that the Wall of Death didn't exist because of the mummy or the Azure Dragon. He couldn't find the purpose of the Wall of Death from here. But even so, the nautical panorama was clearly pointing here. Han Fei didn't believe that the nautical panorama was wrong. Otherwise, there was a reason why the young man and the Azure Dragon chose this grassland. After slaying the dragon, the young man chose to die here, intending to end his life. Unfortunately, things happened again and again, and he didn't want to die. However, Han Fei didn't know what method he used to attract the arrival of the death energy, so that he could practice the art of immortality and become an undead creature. In Han Fei's mind, the death energy should only be produced in endless wars, right? But where did the death energy come from on this grassland? It would be more reasonable if you set it in the Death Valley. Another point was that since this mummy had turned into an undead creature, then his former subordinates should have also become undead creatures, right? Firestone Island. As soon as Han Fei returned to the general's mansion in the form of black fog, he didn't immediately practice the dragon swallowing technique but asked, "Old Yuan, tell me honestly, if a person practices the art of immortality, how long can he live after becoming an undead creature?" At present, Han Fei's understanding of lifespan was only limited to human beings. Generally speaking, the venerable realm would go downhill from 5,000 years old. Since it began to go downhill, it couldn't be said that his strength fell rapidly. It could only be said that every time he fought, his death would be accelerated. Even if Han Fei embarked on the Tianqi Great Way, his lifespan would only be increased to 10,000 years. Perhaps only these special races could survive for 100,000 years like the water immortals. The old turtle couldn't help asking, "Why do you suddenly ask this?" Han Fei said, "That mummy came to this island after coming to the Wall of Death. It was he who summoned a large amount of death energy and turned into an undead creature. Not only him, but all of his subordinates had also become undead creatures. What do you think?" Han Fei's explanation was very clear. Jin Tong had given him so many dragon bones. Could it be that they were really useless to him? Or did he know that the grassland was suppressed by the array, so he didn't dare to enter the grassland? Even if Jin Tong was a fake king, he didn't have the power to fight against the purple lightning like the mummy did. If the mummy didn't save him, he would be struck to death as soon as he reached the grassland. Now, Han Fei was very suspicious that the Golden Boy and Jade Girl were the mummy's subordinates. Therefore, they all stayed on this forbidden island. "You mean that person is an undead creature?" The old turtle immediately said, "That's impossible. I can't even tell whether a person is an undead creature or not. That person can't be an undead creature. If he is an undead creature, what does he need to eat? Undead creatures rely on death energy to cultivate. Theoretically, the more they die, the stronger their cultivation will be. This is the fundamental reason why the relationship between the Immortal City and the Demon Beast Alliance is not good. Because what the Undying loved to see the most was death. However, they also know that they were originally human beings, so they don't want human beings to go extinct." Han Fei was stunned for a long time. "Aren't they undead? I clearly—" Wait, Han Fei saw. The mummy summoned death energy. Han Fei also saw. The mummy tried to turn into an undead creature. However, what he saw was just a picture, a fragmented memory. He didn't see everything clearly. Now, after hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei was a little uncertain. Han Fei turned his head and asked, "Old Yuan, how long can the king live? Can the king live for 100,000 years?" The old turtle pondered. 100,000 years? After I opened the sea, I felt that I could live more than 1,000,000 years. What's the big deal about 100,000 years? Han Fei cleared his mind and asked again, "Then let's not talk about the mummy now. Let's talk about the Golden Boy and Jade Girl. You said that the Golden Boy is at most a fake king, right? Do you think they can live for tens of thousands of years? Humans shouldn't be able to." The old turtle said leisurely, "If I tell you that the undead creatures have no lifespan at all, what do you think?" "No lifespan?" The old turtle sneered. "Think about it. They are dead creatures in the first place. As long as there is death energy, they can survive and grow. When there is enough death energy, they will grow. When there is not enough death energy, they will be weakened. Or when there is not enough death energy, the undead creatures can devour each other. So, in theory, the more they devour, the stronger they will become. Of course, there must be a continuous supply of death energy. When they run out of death energy, they will be completely annihilated after they are annihilated." Han Fei was dumbfounded. "Is it so terrible? No lifespan? Only life and death?" The old turtle snorted. "What else do you think? Generally speaking, the undead creatures can't tolerate each other. They will try to devour each other to make themselves grow. You human beings are special because the living and the dead are together, and you have a common enemy. If the undead don't fight, the living will also die. In the end, everyone will become undead, and it will be meaningless to kill each other. Gulp, Han Fei swallowed. So, the golden boy and jade girl are probably left by the mummy? The undead city had enough resources to provide for these undead. Wasn't it enough to fight every day and year? However, the old turtle suddenly said, I don't care about that. I don't care whether he was left by the mummy or not. After all, they are human beings. I gave you the dragon bones, and you told them everything. You did them a favor. Now, you can really release the mummy as long as you want. Han Fei shook his head. I don't want to. The old turtle said, I know you don't want to. Based on the mummy's condition, although it wasn't an undead creature, it wasn't a normal king either. According to his conditions, he should have died a long time ago if he didn't become an undead creature. Smacked Han Fei slapped his thigh. That's right. That's right. He is only skin and bones. He should have died a long time ago. But look at him. He can eat, drink, and fight. He doesn't look like he will die at all. The old turtle said leisurely, if he has been sleeping, it is also possible. He only wakes up when he needs it. Most of the time, he seals himself in the grave. With the conditions of a king, it is indeed possible for him to survive. But as long as they go out, they can possess anyone or reincarnate, and they will still have a chance to rise again. Han Fei frowned. Then isn't the king immortal? The old turtle sneered. Who can live forever? There is a limit. The limit of reincarnation is generally only 3 times. After that, you can't reincarnate anymore. I've told you before, most people can't even achieve it a second time. They can only reincarnate once. Han Fei shrugged. That's right. But that's too unbelievable. If he could cultivate to the monarch realm, then reincarnate and cultivate to the monarch realm again, it would be enough. It was very likely that he could go further. After confirming the lifespan of the undead, Han Fei focused his attention on the azure dragon again. It was obvious that the azure dragon had run away. Now that it had run away, Han Fei had to wonder if the dragon corpse in his Forge the Universe was the one that the mummy had been chasing. Chapter 1574. Han Fei couldn't help but think about this matter. According to the time when I caught the dragon subduing Immortal Palace was after the palace moved here. Isn't this a bit too much of a coincidence? Even the old turtle, an emperor of the Age of Gods, had never seen a dragon. Old Han also said that the dragon was just a totem of the dragon subduing heaven. However, it happened to be in this cage and had a great battle with the dragon, but it didn't die completely. I said that in the void, this dragon traveled through the void and picked up treasures in the void. It happened to encounter the eye of the heavenly path and was almost destroyed in both soul and soul. If I hadn't saved it, it would have died. If one were to look at it from another perspective, the azure dragon was escaping with the intention of traveling through the void. However, it happened to encounter the eye of the heavenly path. It was already heavily injured and it was almost killed. Fortunately, I saved it. However, I also have a purpose. I wanted to guard the source water. That's why there is this legend about the dragon. In fact, from the beginning to the end, there was only this dragon. Han Fei was shocked by his own idea. If this was the case, then this ancient corpse of the azure dragon might be the one that the mummy was chasing. This azure dragon destroyed the dragon subduing heaven and was full of misdeeds. If his guess was correct, it would be impossible to return its body to it easily. Of course, nothing was absolute. However, the dragon subduing heaven used to worship the dragon race and its totem. Why did everyone turn against each other when the true dragon appeared? Han Fei didn't know the reason. Han Fei pondered for a moment. There were some things that he might have to ask the golden boy and jade girl. In Forge the Universe, Han Fei regained his vitality and didn't learn the dragon swallowing technique. Han Fei was still waiting for the response from the front line. Now, Han Fei wasn't worried at all that the Black Blood City would come to retaliate, nor did he believe that the Black Killer Snail King would come directly. The Black Killer Snail King was a cautious person. The sea demon's sacred land couldn't have been built overnight. It must have been set up for 100 years. If Han Fei hadn't seen through it in advance, the Black Killer Snail King wouldn't have attacked the Scattered Stars Island immediately. Even if they had to fight, they would have tried to make a comeback and help each other from the inside and outside. Therefore, the Black Killer Snail King was a smart conch. Now that Han Fei appeared in the Immortal City, he had to think, since Han Fei is here, will others come? Since Han Fei was already here, why did he kill someone to sign up so confidently? What was Han Fei's purpose? It was obvious that they were trying to lure him over. Because of these potential factors, Han Fei concluded that the Black Killer Snail King wouldn't come. At least, he wouldn't come now. Although the Black Killer Snail King wouldn't come, Han Fei predicted that he would send someone to check it out. Everyone had the same mentality. They couldn't mobilize a group of people to strengthen the defense line just because they claimed to be Han Fei. The next day, Han Fei was repairing the foundation of some beginner explorers when Yi Qian appeared next to him with a swish. Yi Qian said, "Someone from Black Blood City has come to see you." Han Fei smiled. "Everyone is free to do whatever you want. It's still the same, don't leave the island without my order." After a while, on the fourth island, Han Fei heard someone shouting, "Where is Han Fei of the human race? Come out and meet me." When Han Fei saw the man, he sneered. It was Chao Xian, a man whom Han Fei had met once. As a newcomer to the Immortal City, all of Han Fei's actions were being watched by those strong masters. Everyone wanted to see what kind of waves he could set off. Han Fei appeared in the sea and faced Chao Xian calmly. "Stray dog, you didn't hesitate to damage your own cultivation to escape from me. Who gave you the courage to come face to face with me today?" Chao Xian was about to continue shouting when he suddenly saw Han Fei's face. His expression changed slightly. "It's really this guy. Yesterday, 2 venerables died in the Immortal City, and the Black Killer Snail King was furious. In recent years, nothing had been going well. In just 2 years, 9 venerables from Black Blood City died in the cage. This was a heavy blow. How many venerables were there in the entire Black Blood City?" Chao Xian asked. "It's really you?" Gan Feng and the other human venerables were looking at the battlefield quietly. Judging from Chao Xian's expression and tone, he didn't seem to be lying. Chao Xian said, "My king asked me to tell you that you and everyone else in the Immortal City should be prepared to face my king's wrath." Han Fei tilted his head and smiled. "Anything else? Why didn't he tell me himself?" Chao Xian snorted. "How can you compare to my king?" "Ha, really? Back then, when I killed his demi-monarch projection, I didn't kill him? I killed an ironhead fish?" On the Immortal City's side, many people were shocked. They had always known that Han Fei killed a half-king. But those were all Han Fei's own words. It was only because Han Fei could completely crush Qin Xiang that everyone chose to believe him. But now that he looked at it, it seemed to be true. Han Fei killed the projection of the Black Killer Snail King? Even if it was just a projection, it was still the Black Killer Snail King. For a moment, many people looked at Han Fei in a different way. It seemed that this fellow's background was even greater than what he said. Chao Xian's face was livid. Han Fei was as arrogant as ever. However, it was precisely this fellow who had forcefully destroyed all of Black Blood City's great plans. This was a fight to the death. However, Chao Xian knew why he was here. He was here to confirm Han Fei's identity, not to challenge him. So, facing Han Fei's mockery, he only sneered. Chao Xian shouted, "People of the Immortal City, my king has ordered you to hand over Han Fei in 3 days. Otherwise, the Black Blood City and the Immortal City will go to war." Gan Feng responded indifferently, "Go back and tell the Black Killer Snail King that human beings are never afraid of war. If you want to fight, come on." Han Fei couldn't help but look back at Gan Feng. This man was straightforward and didn't even hesitate. Since the half-king was calling for war, the other venerables and explorers naturally followed suit. Fight, fight, fight. After Chao Xian left, Han Fei and Gan Feng looked at each other. After exchanging a look, Han Fei returned to the Firestone Island. As soon as he returned to the Firestone Island, Han Fei left quietly again. Originally, Han Fei didn't want to go to the Forbidden Island. He seemed to be able to see that there was a huge secret buried deep under the Forbidden Island. However, the behavior of Ganfeng and the others today was too abnormal. They were too straightforward. A full-scale war between the Immortal City and the Black Blood City? In theory, it was naturally impossible to open it. Even if another 20 venerables from the Black Blood pool died, human beings still couldn't defeat them. Therefore, it took a lot of courage for the Immortal City to accept the war. Besides, it required enough trust in oneself. That was the problem of trust. Outside the Forbidden Island, Han Fei stood on the shore. He turned his hand, and the death bone sun appeared in his hand. Woo, woo, woo. After thinking for a while, Han Fei began to play the sun. A sobbing melody came from the death bone sun. About 100 breaths later, the void was torn apart, and Jin Tong walked out of it with a smile. The golden boy said in a childish voice, "We meet again so soon?" Han Fei stared at the golden boy with glowing eyes. In Forge the Universe, the nautical panorama turned slightly and pointed at the golden boy. Although he had expected this, Han Fei was still relieved to see the answer. Han Fei said, "Are you from the fifth immortal palace, the dragon-subduing heaven?" When he heard the words, dragon-subduing heaven, even the golden boy, who was as strong as a king, slightly shivered his eyelids. With his arms hanging down, the golden boy looked at Han Fei solemnly. "It seems that you met the palace master?" Han Fei couldn't help but smile. "I almost couldn't make it out. So, the reason why you dare not enter that grassland is because of the purple thunder array on the grassland. Only one lightning arc is needed to kill a normal mid-level venerable. Even a peak-level venerable can't withstand a few bombardments." The golden boy smiled. "When you went to look for the dragon bones, I knew that you had met the palace master. You met the palace master, survived, and came out safely. More importantly, you have the palace master's trust. You are definitely not the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island." Han Fei grinned. "What do you mean?" Chen Xiang was also the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island, but she didn't even know the Yin-Yang Heaven. She didn't even know her own territory, let alone the dragon-subduing heaven. However, you concluded that I came from the dragon-subduing heaven and even knew that we were the fifth. Based on this alone, you can't be Chen Xiang." Han Fei sneered. "Maybe I learned it from your palace master?" The golden boy shook his head. "There was indeed a big array on the grassland, and there were murals we left. But there was never any mention of our origins. At that time, the palace master was half crazy, and the purple dragon array had already broken out. We all died before the murals were finished. In the end, the palace master sacrificed her soul and flesh to cast a forbidden technique, summoned the immortal mist, and transformed us all into undead creatures." With that, the golden boy looked at Han Fei solemnly. "Let me introduce myself again. My name is Jin Tong, the left guardian of the dragon-subduing heaven. Well, don't say that you are the supreme commander anymore." Han Fei smiled faintly. "You can regard me as the next immortal master of the Yin-Yang Heaven. The ninth immortal master, Han Fei." The golden boy was obviously stunned by Han Fei's words. After a long time, he said, "If I don't become a king, how can I be the master?" Han Fei said leisurely, "Prepared." The golden boy. Chapter 1575. Han Fei revealed his identity because he needed to cooperate with Jin Tong at this critical moment and wanted to get some information from him. Since it was a cooperation, there had to be a basis. Therefore, Han Fei negotiated with Jin Tong as the master of the Yin-Yang Heaven for the first time. Although he knew that he was far from being the master of the Yin-Yang Heaven, he didn't dare to challenge him. They looked at each other for a moment, and Jin Tong finally laughed. "Okay, you didn't ask me to come here just to tell me everything, did you?" Han Fei asked. "You wouldn't ask me if I didn't ask you for help?" Jin Tong smiled. "At least not for the time being. Those dragon bones can only be used by the dragon-taming heaven's unique technique. So, you must have given them all to the master. However, the master still hasn't come out, which means that there aren't enough dragon bones. Han Fei thought to himself, I can release the mummy right now if I want to. That purple dragon formation was nothing more than the accumulation of power from outside the formation over countless years. Now, the desolate tomb has been broken. As long as the mummy has enough dragon bones, it should be able to break this array. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't tell Jin Tong that. The mummy was a time bomb. He wouldn't release it before he was able to control it. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "What's the name of your master?" Jin Tong didn't hide it at all. He said straightforwardly, "My master, Zhao Xianglong." Han Fei couldn't help sweating. This name is really not creative at all. Zhao Xianglong from the dragon taming heaven? From the sound of it, it sounded like a muscular man. Han Fei said, "Okay, since you have nothing to ask me now, let me ask you first. First of all, what's the secret under this island?" Instead of answering directly, Jin Tong said, "I have something to ask. You said that you are the reserve 9th immortal master, so as long as you can do one thing, the immortal city and I will stand on your side unconditionally." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "You mean, save your master?" Jin Tong nodded slightly. "Yes. The master's strength is beyond our reach. As long as the purple dragon array is broken and the master comes out of seclusion, Black Blood City won't be a problem at all." Han Fei quickly responded, "Let's not talk about whether or not I can save him for now. Even if I did manage to save him. You said that he was already half mad when you fell. But what I saw was complete madness. The only thing he knew was to slay dragons. How could there be any dragons in the Yin-Yang heaven? I'm afraid that instead of slaughtering the dragons, my Yin-Yang heaven will be slaughtered." Jin Tong's expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to speak, a crisp voice suddenly sounded. "The palace master may be crazy about slaying dragons, but he will never attack humans." Do you know that the palace master's dragon-slaying incident was caused by the Dragon Clan's massacre of the human world? Han Fei looked in the direction of Death Valley. The one who said that should be the Jade Maiden. Jin Tong made an affectionate gesture. "You've been to Death Valley before. You should know that it's very safe there." Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at the golden boy. Safety? That place is filled with death energy. If not for our cooperation, Death Valley would be one of the most dangerous places in this cage. You're telling me it's safe? However, Han Fei still nodded slightly. He had met the Jade Maiden once, and he even threatened her for a death bone soon. A moment later, the Death Valley was full of bones. Seeing the golden bones, Han Fei couldn't help but point at them and ask, "Is this the indestructible golden body?" Jin Tong said, "The golden bones and the indestructible golden body are two different things. The golden bones are just a special body tempering method. There are many people in the dragon-slaying heaven who can practice golden bones." Han Fei nodded slightly, and then he nodded at the indifferent woman and said, "I can't do my best to save your palace master just because of what you said. Besides, even though I'm quite confident, I'm only at the mid-level venerable realm. You want me to touch the purple dragon array? Do you think I can even move?" Jin Tong nodded slightly. "Although you're very good at arrays, as you said, your level is still low. So, we need you to promise us." The Jade Maiden continued, "We need you to swear to the Great Tao that you must find a way to break the purple dragon array in 1,000 years, whether you become a king or not. If you're the reserve deity master of the 9th immortal palace, 1,000 years is not a short time." Jin Tong continued, "You're extremely talented. We've seen that for a long time. Just like my master, anyone who can become the master of a palace must be extremely talented and powerful. You're already on the path to becoming a king. If someone can save my master, the Jade Maiden and I can protect you." Seeing that Jin Tong and the Jade Maiden agreed, Han Fei immediately said, "Wait a minute. You want me to save him? But what I'm worried about is not whether I can save him or not. What I'm worried about is how you can guarantee that he won't do anything to harm the Yin-Yang heaven." Jin Tong and the Jade Maiden looked at each other. In the end, Jin Tong nodded slightly, and the Jade Maiden said, "That's one of the reasons why we chose you. In fact, there are still 2 parts of the dragon body in this cage. Although Han Fei knew what the Jade Maiden wanted to say, he was still slightly taken aback. She said, "When we entered this cage, my master found that the seal of this cage was too extraordinary. Without special means, we could only enter, but not get out. We followed our master to slaughter the dragon, roamed the entire cage, and finally killed it. To punish the cruelty of the dragon clan, the palace master sealed the dragon's head and tail in two extremely dangerous places in this cage. He sealed part of the dragon's soul in them and tortured it every day. Finally, his soul was completely strangled in the dangerous places." Han Fei's blood froze as he listened. Indeed, it was exactly as he saw. Zhao Xianglong obviously hated the Azure Dragon to the core. He had killed the Azure Dragon, but he didn't want it to die in vain, so he had to torture it. Now, part of the dragon had escaped, but he was suppressed in the grassland, unable to get out for 10,000 years. However, Han Fei pretended to be stunned for a moment and quickly asked, "Which two places?" Jin Tong said, "You've already been to one of them. It's under the grassland where my master is. You should have seen a grave on the grassland, right?" Han Fei nodded. "I've been there." Jin Tong and the Jade Maiden looked at each other in surprise. They didn't expect that Han Fei could come out safely after facing the palace master. Jin Tong continued, "In the depths of the grave, there's an underground abyss, where the dragon's tail is suppressed." Han Fei was surprised. "The dragon's tail is here?" Jin Tong said, "Because the abyss under the grassland is an extremely dangerous place. That's the place where life and death meet. The reason why my master was able to use the forbidden technique and find the mist of immortality was because of the existence of that place." Gudu Han Fei swallowed. That's fucking right. He knew that the nautical panorama wouldn't make a mistake. Since it pointed out that there was something wrong with the grassland, there must be something wrong. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "What about the other place?" Jin Tong said, "The other place is in the Forest of Horrors. There's an abyss in the Forest of Horrors that is exactly the same as the abyss under the grassland. As for the specific location, it's in the deepest part of the Forest of Horrors." Han Fei rolled his eyes at the two of them and said, "You two, do you really think I'm too old to live? I can enter the grassland where your palace master is. I can also enter the desolate grave. However, it doesn't mean that I can go to the abyss. Your palace master eats dragons. Is there anything he can't eat? Also, for the Forest of Horrors to be one of the 4 major factions of the Cage of Horrors, there must be a fake king among them, right?" The Jade Maiden looked at Han Fei. "Since you are the 9th immortal master, once you become a king, even if you reach the peak level of the Venerable Realm, who can be your match in the Prison of Horrors? After all, you are now strong enough to fight a peak-level Venerable head-on, aren't you?" Han Fei was speechless. He felt that he had dug a hole for himself. Han Fei smiled bitterly. "Do you really believe that I can reach the peak level of the Venerable Realm from the intermediate Venerable Realm within 1,000 years?" The Jade Maiden and Jin Tong both nodded. Han Fei found this scene a bit absurd. The Jade Maiden explained, "Don't forget. When was the first time I saw you?" Han Fei was speechless this time. He couldn't refute the Jade Maiden's question. When he met her for the first time, he was only a junior explorer. Han Fei couldn't help but say, "At that time, I hid my strength." The Jade Maiden replied, "Not much." Before Han Fei could refute, the Jade Maiden continued, "We think highly of you. As you said, if you are the immortal master of the Yin-Yang heaven, not the Waterwood heaven. You can't be from the Waterwood heaven. If that's the case, your growth should be even faster." Han Fei asked, "Why?" The Jin Tong said in a childish voice, "Because the Yin-Yang technique is weird. The Yin-Yang heaven once fought the Grand Pure Realm and the Wuji Realm head-on without being defeated." But Han Fei took a breath and said, "You mean the first immortal palace and the third immortal palace?" Han Fei remembered what his mother told him. The Grand Pure Realm and the Wuji Realm were clear enemies. Their immortal palaces were ranked first and third respectively, so they couldn't be weak. There was no ranking in the 36 towns. There were differences in the 36 towns. In order to distinguish the strong from the weak, The villages even held resource competitions. How could there be no ranking in the 36 heavens? Hearing the Jin Tong and the Jade Maiden's words, Han Fei thought of something. So, do you mean that I can use the dragon head and the dragon tail to lure your palace master out of the Yin-Yang heaven? The Jade Maiden nodded. That's right. Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth. In fact, a period of 1,000 years was too long. What a joke! He still had forged the universe. If he used it, 1,000 years would be more than 10,000 years. After a moment of silence, Han Fei said, "One last question. You said that there was only the dragon head and the dragon tail, but why was there a dragon corpse under the blood sea?" The Jin Tong said casually, "My king slayed more than one dragon. That dragon corpse was sacrificed to the gods with an ancient method, hoping to find reinforcements to save my king. Unfortunately, I only summoned a bronze gate. That gate was so weird that it completely isolated the Azure Dragon. Even I couldn't use the dragon corpse." Han Fei was shocked, and the old turtle said leisurely, "So it was a sacrifice. That makes sense. Most sacrifices in this world have problems, so it's reasonable for them to have problems." Han Fei thought that this was a good idea. When he was stronger in the future, he could use this method to save himself a way out. Han Fei said, "Okay, deal." First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1576. Swear by the Great Tao? Han Fei had so many Great Tao. God knew which Great Tao he had sworn to? In short, Han Fei found a random Great Tao and made a Great Tao oath. This matter was settled just like that. However, the Golden Boy and the Jade Girl didn't know. They thought Han Fei must have sworn to the Human King Great Tao. Although Han Fei seemed to be cultivating two Great Taos at the same time, no matter which one he cultivated, it was enough. One was the Tianqi Great Tao, also known as the Human King Great Tao. The other was the Yin-Yang Great Tao, a unique Great Tao of the Yin-Yang heaven. If the Golden Boy and the Jade Girl knew that Han Fei didn't even understand what the Yin-Yang Great Tao was, what would they think? Besides, it didn't matter to Han Fei. In fact, he could rescue Zhao Xianglong now, but he didn't want to. So what if it was 1,000 years or not? The only thing he had to consider was how to capture Zhao Xianglong after he was released. After all, a lunatic, a king-level lunatic, was not easy to catch. At this moment, Han Fei made a Great Tao oath. Immediately, he said to the Golden Boy and the Jade Girl, "Okay, since I made the oath, I will definitely do it. Now, let's talk about me." The Golden Boy nodded. "Go ahead." Han Fei asked, "You just said that as long as I agree to rescue your master, you can make the entire immortal city stand on my side?" The Golden Boy nodded. "Of course. Except for my master, sea demons are the enemy of all races. In terms of dealing with sea demons, all races in the world have the same goal." Han Fei's eyes became fierce. "Okay. In this case, I'm going to fight a big battle, a shocking battle that will make the Black Killer Snail King's scalp tingle." When Han Fei became the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island and saw countless people die in the battle, his heart had become hard and ruthless. He could sympathize with an ordinary person on the roadside, but he would not hesitate at all when facing a war. Even if this war required countless people to be sacrificed, as the saying went, a general success was achieved by 10,000 people. Han Fei dared to fight in the Battle of the Scattered Stars Island, so he dared to fight in the Immortal City. In essence, there was no difference between the two. Half a day later, Han Fei left quietly and returned quietly. Everyone thought that Han Fei didn't do anything on Firestone Island, but they didn't know how much Han Fei had experienced in the past 2 days. Buzz. On the night after the confrontation with Chao Xian, only half a day had passed since the morning. Han Fei scanned the area and immediately found a big bald head. Who else could it be but Hua Meng? At this moment, there were only a few people surrounding Hua Meng. Long Shi and Qin Yu were the first to follow Han Fei to the Immortal City. Although at that time, they just wanted to keep an eye on Han Fei. But this was their advantage. Han Fei obviously didn't care about Lu Yuntian before. But now he assigned a task to Lu Yuntian, which could only mean that the level of this task was very high. At least, it had to be done by an advanced venerable. When everyone went out and only Lu Yuntian was left in the general's mansion, Lu Yuntian wondered, "General Han, what can I do for you?" Han Fei looked at him lightly and said, "You don't have to participate in this battle." Lu Yuntian was taken aback. "What task?" Han Fei shook his head. "No task." Lu Yuntian asked in surprise, "Then why?" Han Fei smiled slightly. "Your task is to not show up among these people in this battle. After the war, I will come to you." Lu Yuntian narrowed his eyes and finally nodded slightly. Han Fei's behavior seemed to be casual and a bit unscrupulous. However, no one ever stopped him. Whether it was Yi Qian or Gan Feng, no one stopped him at all. Everyone seemed to acquiesce to Han Fei's behavior, which made Lu Yuntian feel very strange. Now, Han Fei was obviously going to set Wang He up. This also meant that it was time to make use of Wang He's undercover identity. And Wang He was not far from death. Originally, Lu Yuntian thought that Han Fei might have to stay in the front line for a while to make arrangements. Who knew that Han Fei would be so stubborn? In the morning, Chao Xian just came to threaten the immortal city, and in the evening, Han Fei wanted to fight. He didn't take the Black Blood City seriously at all. Lu Yuntian nodded. But only 30,000 kilometers away from the first island, there were 25 people including Han Fei and Yi Qian. Han Fei said, "Everyone wait here." Then, Han Fei handed a jade slip to Yi Qian and said, "If everything goes well, this jade slip will automatically shatter in a while. At that time, the teleportation array will be opened, and the whole army will attack." Yi Qian's voice was cold, but she responded crisply, "Understood." With a swish, Han Fei disappeared. As soon as Han Fei disappeared, these venerables all began to discuss. They had never fought such a war before. And Wang He's face was very ugly at this moment. Lu Yuntian disappeared. There were as many as 25 venerables in a battle, but Lu Yuntian, an advanced venerable, disappeared? He took another mission. What the hell was that mission? He didn't even fight such an important battle? While everyone was talking, Wang He couldn't help but say, "Venerable Yi Qian, what is General Han trying to do? We've never fought such an unclear battle before." Yi Qian's voice was indifferent. "I haven't fought either. But it doesn't matter. Since Han Fei is the commander, he has his own test. Commander-in-chief level figures have their own considerations for any war." With Wang He's words, the crowd's discussion gradually grew louder. Suddenly, Hua Meng shouted, "What are you talking about? Just fight if General Han wants us to. Don't talk so much." However, Hua Meng was a junior venerable. Among these venerable powerhouses, his words didn't carry much weight, so some people still talked to him via voice transmission. Someone muttered, "The main thing is, can we trust him completely now? That's the main problem." As soon as this was said, almost everyone fell silent. In fact, they all had the same question in their minds. That was, although Han Fei had slaughtered 2 venerables and cured countless people. But there were more than 20 venerables here. What if something went wrong? Could Han Fei really be completely trusted? They had never cooperated with each other before. Yi Qian snorted coldly. "Shut up, all of you. Since it was Han Fei's arrangement, it means that this operation has already been considered by the Half-King Realm powerhouses. Why do you need to discuss it?" Phew, immediately, someone breathed a sigh of relief. It turns out that the Half-King Realm powerhouses all know. It seems that there is no problem. Someone was completely relieved and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that we would face such a big battle as soon as we came out. Slaughtering 5 venerables, if we can really do it, it will definitely boost the morale of our human race." Someone nodded. "Guys, we haven't come out for many years. Don't let others laugh at us. Remember to fight with all your strength later." Wang He's heart sank. It seemed that Han Fei's action was supported by others. He could probably guess that with Han Fei's arrogant character, he would only inform the people who should be informed. That was to say, the Half-King Realm powerhouses and peak stage venerables. Because these people were powerful enough to hold the hands of others. And beginner venerables and middle-level venerables like them were just war machines in Han Fei's eyes. At this moment, Wang He wondered, what did Lu Yuntian do? What did Lu Yuntian do? While Wang He and the others were waiting, Han Fei had quietly crossed the first island. In pure black, he mixed in the dark bottom of the sea and slowly swam to the outer sea outside the island. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.